So you're not going to be first up on the agenda, so that's okay, right? Yeah, no, I got you, I got you.
See, we use the same laptop.
Hi, how are you?
I got Easthampton Media in me, the ThinkPad.
I see, yeah.
Okay, we're waiting for Matt, but we're like 15 seconds out. Ryan, are we going out live tonight? Not live. That's interesting because we have Jen Ramsey up on the schedule.
Yes. An issue. And
Okay,
especially.
is it 6 o'clock? Okay, we're gonna start the meeting, folks. Matt will catch up with us.
I agree.
Good evening. Welcome to the June 11th, 2019 Select Board meeting. I'm John Martin, Francine Tishman, and Chris Foles on my left. And we'll be joined by Matt Rowland on my right. Renee Groden can't make it tonight. We're not going out live tonight, but we are being recorded. So if you can stand and help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have a number of appointments and reappointments. I've got a cold tonight, so if I miss something or you can't hear me, please speak up. So the appointments, Thomas Bashista, Agricultural Commission, reappointment, term to expire 6/30/2022. Lorraine Losell, Council on Aging, reappointment, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Nancy Ruscio, Council on Aging, appointment, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Karen Adamski, Cultural Council, reappointment, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Lucille Dalton, Cultural Council, reappointment, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Jody Loud, Cultural Council, reappointment, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Art Lawrence, Conservation Commission, reappointment, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Robert Kozub, Historical Commission, reappointment, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Diana Fetterman, Open Space Review Ad Hoc Committee, reappointment, term to expire June 30th, 2020. And Robin Richard, Election Worker, appointment for the June 18th, 2019 special election, term to expire August 31st, 2019. Can we have a motion to accept all of them?
I move to accept these appointments.
I'll
Is
second
there
it.
a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I am going to take something out of order here so that we can get it done with Lucy Dalton here. Under other documents requiring signature, going to move up the signing of the note for 111 Glendale Road and 68 Pomeroy Meadow Road. Signing of the DEP funding extension increase for water system improvement project. No, actually that one's not going forward. The next one is approval of acceptance deed for 68 Pomeroy Meadow Road. Then the signing of certificate for the Secretary of State that Lucille Dalton was elected as town clerk. Okay, Ed, do you want to start with the 111 Glendale?
Shall I pass these down first?
Certainly. Since some of the conservation restrictions and the baseline reports have not been approved or authorized by the state yet, which has to do that before the members of the town boards can sign off on them. While we'll get everything filed for June 30th requirement for our grant reimbursements, we will not actually have our the reimbursement back by the required date for Department of Revenue. So rather than have this count negatively towards free cash, we are looking to short-term borrow for the Pomeroy Meadow Road project and for $400,000 of the Glendale Road
So we're just going to
project.
bridge fund it until we get our funding in?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Is there any questions on that?
And then the Pomeroy Meadow Road, we were going to borrow from CPC funds
Right.
anyway for that, so it'll just get rolled into the actual borrowing and note on that. And Jennifer Day, our treasurer collector, is here with the actual documents and can go into any details if you've got any questions on that.
Okay. So why don't we take these two before we go on to the others? Want us to, do we have the documents for signature?
And how long will we have this money, this kind of bridge loan situation?
We're borrowing the
Fair.
money until May of 2020.
So from now until then,
Yes,
so about a year.
yes.
It's a serious stamper.
Hmm?
She's dragging over there. Yeah, the seal.
So we have to sign all three of these.
And is that, did John start? Start doing it.
Oh, you can start down there if you want.
There's more, so.
So we need a motion on these, I'm
So-
assuming.
Yes,
So
please.
can we have a motion on signing the note for 111 Glendale and 68 Pomeroy Meadow Road?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second it, yeah.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oops, hold on, is there more than one place? Yeah.
Did these already go down the line? Am I the
Nope,
last one up?
you're the second.
Go
Yeah.
to you.
Let's keep all these at one, yeah, this is all one packet. There we go. You don't want to ever get sued, do you? Can't read your signature, can't sue them.
Signature with this. Goes with that one.
Inconsistent. Can't read it. I don't know who it is. Actually, it is consistent. Consistently bad.
One, there you go. You're the last one on this one, you're the last one on that one, okay.
What do I do then?
Oh, there we just gotta hand down, yeah. Are we signing, Jen, the deed for 68 Pomeroy? That's the deed in here too?
No, I've got that.
Okay, so we'll vote on that next.
Yeah, we'll be signing the acceptance of the deed.
Okay. So while we're doing that, the approval of acceptance deed for 68 Pomeroy Meadow Road, we have to sign that, so. Do you need a motion on that, Ed?
Please.
Okay, can I have a motion to sign the acceptance deed for 68 Pomeroy Meadow Road?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So unanimous? Okay. And while we're passing paperwork around, we need signing of a certificate for the Secretary of State that Lucille A. Dalton was elected as town clerk. So, you have a motion to sign that?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So unanimous? Okay. So,
This is the approval and acceptance of the deeds, of deed.
Okay.
have you do it?
This is from Palmer Meadow, right?
Any more that we need to sign coming down?
Coming your way.
Oh, is that one?
This just needs your
Chair, okay. Let me do this so I can pass it down. There you go. There you go.
I'll just bring them all down.
Hey, you got one more here.
Is that it?
I believe so, yeah. Okay, so while we're signing it, Francine, do you want to go back to the appointments?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the first item on the agenda, the appointments, and I'd like to thank everyone who volunteered to serve on these committees. I know people don't have a lot of extra time, and being on committees myself, I really appreciate the effort everyone's putting in, so thank you.
Thank you all.
I second that too.
Indeed.
All in favor? That's unanimous, by the way.
We
Yes.
still need others
Thank
too.
Yes,
We need
do.
others.
Yes, we
Round
do.
it out.
Okay, hearings, there's none. Quarterly reports. Greenway Committee, Paul Fergal. How you doing, Paul?
Oh, boy.
I'm going to update the Select Board on the progress of the Greenway Committee. Right now, one of the critical paths is securing funds for both the design of the Greenway as well as the purchase of the right to use of that facility. So there's a couple different opportunities that are available to us, particularly through the state. One is unlocking funds from the 2018 environmental bill that Governor Baker has allocated. There's about $850,000 that is available to the town that's earmarked. However, we need to work with local representatives to unlock those funds so we can pay for both the Greenway as well as design services, which is one of the critical components. The other opportunity that we believe we also have is having a revision or amendment added at the state level to the CPA to allow for rail banking purchases to be allowed for actually using CPA funds to purchase rail banking property. So this is kind of where we are. The parcel that the city or the town's going after is about 3.5 miles, as you know. And we're looking to get that changed. Representative Soda, she's interested in supporting that bill since she's co-sponsor, so we have her support going forward. However, it's still in committee and we don't know where that's going to end up at the state level. So
I understand in the fall is when they hope this comes out and gets a vote?
correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's another avenue that we're looking. And the last avenue is through town article. I think that's a bigger step than the previous two, but overall, one of the biggest components is going to be not only the purchase of the rail line, it's going to be the consultant costs. Given that the project is projected to cost about $6 million, we believe that consultant's cost is going to vary anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000, depending on the process that we have to go through the DOT.
I don't want to cut you off but this is news to me and I'm new to this board, so I'm just going to ask the question. The projected cost of 3.5 miles of Greenway is $6 million,
At least, yeah.
not
That's
including the land acquisition or the
correct.
design?
Correct. So that's just for the construction cost that is earmarked, or as she's projected through the Mass DOT TIP program. So that's been designated to be funded through the Mass DOT process. However, using TIP funds, however, we need to show progress to the state that we're continuing the path to.
So you're saying the $6 million would be funded by the state?
Correct.
Okay.
And they would go out on a competitive bid and all that if they haven't
Correct.
already, yeah.
Okay.
Could I just ask you to speak up just a
Sure.
little bit?
Is there a mic here, or
Yeah, right there, that white bar.
Yes,
I'm going to close Amy's laptop here.
thank you.
Uh-oh.
So that bill for $800K, I believe Senator Henderson is championing that.
Correct.
So we need to stay in contact with him on that in his office.
Correct. So it's a matter of communicating with him to have those funds unleashed for the town. to use forward. One of the other things we also need him to help us is with the interpretation of the usage. There's some loose interpretation that we're hoping that will be provided to us with respect to that $800,000 or $850,000, where we're hoping that it could be used towards both the purchase and the design of that. So there's something that we need to work with him.
Both ways, design or purchase, but
Yeah.
if the design's gonna cost 800,000, that would
That would
take care
cover
of it
it.
right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But either way, we want to get it. I mean, from a select board point of view, we can keep working with Senator Humison on the 800,000 for the design, but the House bill, we've got to sit and wait until the fall, or we can try to go to the town and get funding, which, personal opinion, I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of interest in trying to fund it ourselves before we find out if the House bill passes.
right.
Any thoughts from anybody else?
Can I just ask a question? On the bill that Representative Sabadosa is sponsoring or co-sponsoring, wasn't that just to increase the amount of charges that the Register of Deeds could charge to add to the CPA funds? Is she actually got an amendment forth to allow for rail banking? Because I thought that was really dead in the water.
Currently, it's not allowed to be used for rail banking, so they're trying to pass an amendment to allow rail banking as an
Willing
option.
to add that to?
Correct.
I believe it's in there. Ed and I were communicating with Lindsay a week and a half ago on that, and she acknowledged that that's what part of the bill was.
Yeah,
We got
there's-
a copy of it.
There's a separate bill, I believe it's House 1590, which has been filed. It's been sent to a joint committee. It was filed by a representative from the eastern part of the state, but Representative Sabadosa has signed on as a co-sponsor of that particular bill. And this particular bill would allow for the use of community preservation funds in the instances where rail banking occur, which currently is not allowed under the Department of Revenue regulations.
Yeah. So my personal take is that we should probably wait until the fall to see what comes out of committee on this and whether we get the funding. We can use CPA. Any other thoughts?
If I may add, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the critical paths that we need to show with respect to keeping our $6 million that's on
Right.
the horizon from DOT, Mass DOT, is progress in terms of moving forward. There's, a need to select a consultant to go forward to show Mass DOT that we're serious about this and that we're not going to let this sit for X amount of time. Because a lot of times what happens is you'll go to these Joint Transportation Committee meetings at Pioneer Valley, and people are scratching for funds for their communities, for TIP funding to improve roadways, bridges, you name it. So we're on the list. We have an opportunity to get over $6 million to fund this project. However, it's important for us to show to Mass DOT that we're serious about this, and we're looking to go down the avenue of selecting a consultant. One of the things that typically a lot of communities would do at this time would be put out an RFQ, an RFP for consulting services. And I think we can talk about the language and how it wants to be worded, or whatever term we want to use for, available funding, or the award we based on funding to come. But I think we need to show that we're pursuing this opportunity and we're serious about it with the state.
And I think part of that is pursuing the 800K or 850K. So if we put out an RFP or an RFQ without knowing if we have the funds or not, I'm not sure what we'll do with the responses, because they're only good for X amount of time.
Right. I don't know, is there an opportunity for bridge funding or anything that could help us gap the timeframe, or to even get moving with?
Well, I think the issue is if you gap it, what are you gapping it to, in hopes that the bill passes, you use CPA money?
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
pass,
that's the risk
that
right
money
there.
that's sitting there,
Yeah.
that we'd have to pay back. Can we use CPA money for consulting work? I'm shouting the audience.
Well, I was just gonna ask that, like, the river banking's one thing, but then there's several $100,000 in engineering work would that be included in this bill or not necessarily either?
Well, it's just going to allow CPA money to be used for rail
Buy
banking.
the land, but then what about to design it? Because we gotta buy the land, then we gotta design it, and then the TIP funding
Yeah.
kicks in. Am I reading that right, or am I understanding?
Ed,
that
maybe Ed can make that clarification, but I believe that's allowed as part of the CPA. Yeah.
For consultant or design work, it is. It would just be a question of, okay, is it pertinent or to move forward with that without actually owning the property?
And depending on the cost, I mean, if we were thinking of using CPA funds and we put the RFQ out and we got a cost back of, I don't know, $500,000, then we could find out if we want to go forward with CPA funds or not. At least we'll get a cost.
Could, yep.
The other opportunity is to phase it too, but that tends to not look favorable on DOT from a consultant selection standpoint.
Yeah. So I think first step, let's get a hold of Senator Humison and find out where this is and what we can do to push it forward. And then we can discuss the RFQ for the consultants and talk to the CPC for the possible funding.
That sounds fine.
Reasonable?
I'm assuming there's terms of reference that could be used from other towns that we could kind of borrow some language from to
Yeah,
put out an RFP.
PVPC, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission actually has a pretty good outline of these types of services. They've been offering or helping communities out all over the area to procure these types of services from.
So you think they have a sample from another
Oh,
town?
absolutely. That's something that,
Is that something you feel comfortable getting, or
absolutely, I can call.
do you mind in sending it to Ed?
Yeah, that's not a problem. And frankly, there's other communities that issued RFPs in the last few years that are very similar in nature.
Yeah, we
To
don't
what
want to
the-
recreate the wheel, as they say.
No, exactly,
Right.
yeah. And your cost estimates are based on what you've heard from other communities in terms of their design work? Or is that- I mean, are we just putting out a figure, or is it based on other actual experience in the neighborhood?
So the cost estimate was based on an effort that was conducted several years ago based on preliminary assessment done by, I think it was Tool Engineering or Design. They did a study a few years back, and they projected with cost of inflation and everything else to a $6 million cost. There's a general rule of thumb about $2 million a mile of this trail work, but obviously with time,
That's on the construction part, right?
correct.
Right. And then the amount for the design consultant would be,
It's usually about 10-12% of that cost. It depends on overall what DOT wants you to do, but roughly in the grand scheme of things, it's about that percentage.
And I would imagine it depends on what surface we want on the trail also.
the trail is too.
Yeah, believe it or not, I mean, that's relatively going to be peanuts compared to the overall project. I mean, it's the thickness of the trail or how you put it down. Obviously, it's going to contribute to the cost, but it's, you know, if you
The
do a
overall
thickness
still
of,
not much.
yeah, I mean, it's going to vary a little bit. Overall, it's all the prep work and mobilization and contractor activities out there. So that's going to be part of the work, so.
So Randall, you think it's something you guys can take on?
We actually also contacted some neighboring communities to get an input on their experience, particularly Southwick. We looked into how it's managed and how much they fund typically on a yearly basis with town departments. So in Southwick, for example, when I spoke with the DPW director, they actually are responsible for the maintenance of their trail. And as of last fiscal year, I believe they were funded about $7,000 or so, just to help maintain the trail, and they also obviously get support from friends of the trail as well, litter pickup or things of that nature. to help maintain the trail.
Is that a paved trail there?
Yes.
Do they use it year-round, or they just?
Some people use it to
Oh, I guess I was
cross-country,
asking,
and
is it cleared year-round, do you think?
I think, I don't know what their schedule is in terms of clearing. I think it's mostly used during the summer months for mowing operations.
Any more questions for Paul? No? Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. We'll follow up on these. And if you can get the RFQ to Ed,
I'll get that.
thanks a lot.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, Highway Department, Randall Kemp.
Do you want to do the stormwater stuff first or the report?
If you want to do stormwater first, that's fine. Since Emily's here.
Good evening.
You have to introduce yourself to that microphone behind the computer, so I don't know if there's a way to position.
Slide it over, maybe.
I'll slide it over.
Done that a few times.
That works. Good evening. My name is Tracy Adamski. I'm a planner with Ty and Bond and working with Randall and the Highway Department on stormwater. And today we're here to talk about Southampton's stormwater program and more specifically about how Southampton is meeting the requirements of the EPA's stormwater permit, their MS4 permit, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System permitting. And this is actually one of the requirements of the permit is to have a public meeting where there's discussion about the notice of intent and the stormwater management plan and have an opportunity for folks to learn more about the program. And if there's any questions or comments, to provide those to us as well.
Hey, Janet, would you mind flipping the light off, please? Never mind, Ryan's behind you. Thank you.
Better. So when we're talking about stormwater, we're talking about rainwater that falls on the paved streets, lawns, parking lots, sidewalks, and that can potentially become polluted as it enters into your town's systems, the catch basins, the pipes, the outfalls, or directly flows off to our resources, wetlands and streams. The more, there's been a lot of studies that have identified that the more impervious surface there is, the more stormwater runoff has a negative impact on the water quality of receiving water bodies. And this is the reason that EPA has put stormwater as a priority and has the permits for municipalities. So under the MS4, which stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, EPA and Mass DEP here jointly run the program and issue the program. 260 municipalities are authorized in Massachusetts out of 351, and they identify urbanized areas as being the regulated areas under this permit. Those are based on census numbers. The census provides this information to EPA, and EPA provides it, and this is where the requirements come from for being pulled into the program. Don't ask me how they figure this out, because if you look at Southampton, previous to, so based on the 2000 census, you guys have been in the system since 2003 when the initial permit came out. And the little corner around, that little triangle around Pequot Pond was included in the system, and then a couple of small neighborhoods off of County Road were included back in, based on the 2000 census. In 2010, the census added the areas up along Glendale Road, kind of coming out from Easthampton, and then up, I think that's part of Brickyard and the Presidentials, on the southern side coming up from Westfield. So these are your regulated areas. The program requires that municipalities follow 6 minimum control measures. So the first 2 are really related to public education and outreach, making sure that, because we all have an impact on stormwater, letting people know like what their potential impact happens to be. Illicit discharge detection and elimination program is MCM number 3. This is the one where EPA is putting the most stress on this time around and requiring municipalities to actually do outfall sampling and really proactively look for any pollution that's getting into the system that shouldn't be. Then there's construction site stormwater runoff control and stormwater management for new developments and redevelopments. So this is things like making sure there's erosion control barriers at construction sites and installation of best management practices for new developments. And then good housekeeping and pollution prevention, which includes catch basin cleaning, street sweeping, and municipal operations. In addition, there are requirements for Southampton to comply with total maximum daily loads. So these are determinations that have been made through various studies and through EPA that identify for certain water bodies there are impairments, and they have requirements to try and reduce those impairments. And we'll talk about those later. There are some water bodies that are impaired in Southampton. We're also in the Long Island Sound nitrogen TMDL, which impacts Southampton's permit requirements. So as I said, you guys have been complying with the permit since 2003. There's educational materials that are available on the town website and at municipal buildings. There's been opportunities for public participation, including waste collection events, local cleanups. There's the local environmental scholarship award that has been used as a public participation item. We have mapped the outfalls in the regulated area. And back in 2007, the town passed the required stormwater management bylaws. So a bylaw to prohibit illicit connections to the municipal drain system, and also through the zoning to add the erosion and sediment controls for stormwater management. So that address the construction and post-construction requirements. Southampton is also a member of the Connecticut River Stormwater Committee, which helps a lot when it comes to public education. Back at the end of September, we submitted the notice of intent for Southampton, which identified pretty much how the specific best management practices that Southampton would be using to comply with this permit. And it also had to look at endangered species and meeting historic requirements, as well as how the town was going to address these minimum control measures. Southampton did receive its authorization letter on April 5th, 2019. I guess just to go back, the permit itself was issued back in 2016, but there was a year stay. So just before that permit became effective back in June of 2017, EPA issued a letter of stay, so the permit became effective in July 1 of 2018. So we're in permit year 1 now. We're about wrapping up permit year 1. So one of the requirements to be completed by July 1 is to have a written stormwater management plan. And that we have, the town has a draft of, and this provides the regulatory background and summary of the town's existing programs, what they did to meet the 2003 permit, and what they need to do to meet the new permit. And I'll say the new permit is very, the old permit, you could identify these are what we want to do as a town to meet the requirements. The new permit is very prescriptive. EPA is saying this is what you need to do in order to be in compliance. So the stormwater management program goes through and identifies all the requirements and how the town is going to be meeting those. And there's also significant requirements with respect to record keeping and reporting. Every September, there'll be an annual report that needs to be submitted to EPA with some detailed information. So on the public education and outreach side, there are annual messages that are required to be sent to residents and businesses, any institutions and commercial facilities. So in the spring, the targeted message is with respect to disposal of grass clippings and fertilizers. Summer, it's pet waste management. Fall is addressing leaf litter. There's also 2 messages over the course of the permit term, so over the course of the 5-year permit term, to send notices to contractors to make sure they're aware of proper erosion sediment controls, what the town's permit requirements are that they need to be following, and also that they need to follow the EPA construction general permit if applicable. And a lot of the public education and messaging is going to be coordinated with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and the Connecticut River Stormwater Committee. They also have ways to track who's seeing the messages, so that will help in the reporting end of things for the town. Public involvement and participation, one of the requirements is that the notice of intent and the stormwater management plan are available for the public. The final notice of intent was published on EPA's website. It's still up there if people want to take a look at it. And the draft stormwater management plan and the final will be available at Highway. So I mentioned the illicit discharge detection and elimination program, IDDE program, is where a lot of EPA's focus happens to be. There's a requirement for sanitary sewer overflow inventory. While there are some small areas of sewering in Southampton, those are all private, so it's not something that the town's going to have to worry about. But they do have to have an updated map of the storm sewer system and a written program. So that mapping includes identifying and inventorying all the outfalls. And I'll say, because you have such a small urbanized area, there's only 14 outfalls. So that makes this process a lot simpler and straightforward. So we're working right now on delineating the catchments and identifying prioritization for which ones need to be, sampled, or what the priority for sampling happens to be. And there are requirements to sample during both dry weather and wet weather events. For stormwater management, so for construction stormwater management and management in new development, there may be some tweaks coming down for the existing stormwater bylaw or the permitting applications that are available to. There's a couple of additional requirements that EPA has, such as having as-built being provided to the town within a certain amount of time for stormwater systems, and some more specific language with respect to who can do inspections on the behalf of the town for developments. Further out in the permit compliance will be an assessment of all the town's regulations, so zoning, subdivision, site plan, looking at how those might inhibit low impact development and looking for opportunities to revise them to make them more amenable to low impact development, which is trying to get away from having stormwater piped, but trying to keep it local. So this is more rural drainage, so swales as opposed to curbs, catch basins and pipes, rain gardens, those types of things. Or it could also be looking at the widths of your roads for subdivision. Is it a 30-foot wide paved way, or can it be, something smaller? So those are the types of things that would go into that regulatory assessment review. In addition, there is the requirement to look at the potential to upgrade some of Southampton's existing infrastructure to better address water quality. And again, to incorporate green infrastructure such as rain gardens, which is a picture of what's in front of the house there. When it comes to good housekeeping, this falls primarily on the municipalities, so it's looking at municipal facilities, parks, buildings, and how those are operated and maintained, from things like landscaping, pesticide fertilizer use, de-icing, and storage of hazardous materials, to just keep in mind ways that you can better protect the environment and the stormwater through proper operation and maintenance. The MS4 infrastructure O&M procedures focus on catch basin cleaning and street sweeping, as well as road de-icing, like where you might store excess snow, not putting snow out into the, pushing it off into a river. So those are some of the procedures that are part of the operation and maintenance of the MS4 infrastructure. And then stormwater best management practices. So for those, and I think Southampton may have very few of these that are under Southampton's control, where there are detention basins or other types of best management practices that need to be maintained. So winter road maintenance focuses on establishing and implementing procedures for winter road maintenance. So looking at how much sand and salt are being used, where snow is being stored if needed. There's also a requirement to develop stormwater pollution prevention plans for specific facilities, including the transfer station and the highway garage. And again, this is a list of, identification of where are there some possibilities for pollution from these facilities into the stormwater, and best management practices for operation and maintenance at those individual facilities. And I had mentioned TMDLs, so this is really water quality based. All of us here in all municipalities in Western Mass fall in the Long Island Sound nitrogen TMDL, and the supplemental best management practices that are required to meet that TMDL are additional public education and outreach messages. The number of messages that I mentioned previously include these additional messages. Otherwise, I think you wouldn't have to do annual messages, but maybe messages out to the residents like every couple of years, but instead there's annual messages required. Amending the stormwater bylaw to look at opportunities to optimize nitrogen removal, use of slow release fertilizers. Street sweeping is required to be done twice annually instead of just annually. And again, that's only limited to the urbanized areas, so it's more of an accounting, making sure, whoops. We'll see if this comes back. Okay. But while that's going, I can keep talking. So otherwise, street sweeping would be required annually, but you just have to worry about those few streets that are included in the regulated area. There's a requirement to do a nitrogen source identification report out in, I think, year 4 or 5 of the permit. And then when we talked about retrofitting existing municipal infrastructure, identifying if there's the potential to install BMPs that specifically address nitrogen. The Manhan River has an E. coli impairment, and as part of that, there's supplemental public education messages. Again, we've already incorporated that into the public education component, and catchments that drain to the Manhan River will be a higher priority for doing the sampling. Pequot Pond currently is listed as having an impairment for total phosphorus. I'm going to say that this might change. There's a 2014 list of impaired waters that is the final list that the state and EPA are going off of. There's a 2016 list that is still in draft form, and phosphorus comes out for Pequot Pond, but bacteria and pathogens go in. So it would follow the same requirements as the Manhan River, but in case, that's still a draft, so in case phosphorus remains, then for Pequot Pond, there's some additional requirements to be considered with respect to phosphorus. So those are the requirements that are on Southampton for meeting the EPA MS4 permit. Southampton has been active in meeting the permit since 2003, and with the new requirements, is ramping up to meet those requirements as well. It is a 5-year permit, but just so you know, there are compliance requirements that extend 10 years out. So some of the sampling, you have until permit year 10. We should see a new permit coming out in 5 years. It took EPA about 10 years to issue this permit that we're working under. That one actually expired in 2008, so it came out in 2016, so 8 years. So I think, even if the permit expires, similar to what happened last time, the permit requirements stay in place until EPA has another permit that they issue in replacement of that one.
Which will presumably be more onerous than this one.
Yes. And we'll see how the census data comes out, and the next
Right, so our urban active
decennial.
areas will probably get larger as well.
Yeah. So some of these, I think for the outfall sampling, those can be very focused on the regulated area, but for some of the other, like the regulations, some of the O&M, the operation and maintenance requirements, those are generally done town-wide. So you'll have a leg up on there, but yeah, we'll see where it goes. So that's all that I had. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments.
Any questions for Tracy? That was a lot of information, for sure. No questions? Thank you very much for coming.
You're
Very
welcome.
informative.
Thanks for having me.
It sounds like you're doing a lot of work there, Randall. Thank you.
June 30th. Yeah. Excellent, thank you.
You're up next, Randall. You want to do your highway? Sure.
Sure.
Is that cord going to be used by anybody?
I don't know, Tracy, is this yours?
No, it's ours. Yeah. It'll eventually be used by me. Don't put it, leave it on there. I'll be using that.
Do we use that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't get back yet, Matt.
All right, good evening, Randall Kemp, Highway Superintendent. So I'll give you guys a departmental update. Most people have heard by now that our 23-year-old sweeper required quite extensive repairs to get it back on the road, but it has now been out sweeping for about a week and a half, despite a couple of additional breakdowns. We've not replaced our mechanic and currently have no interested candidates. Highway staff have been filling in and doing as much of the in-house mechanical work as possible, and we are sending the rest out for repair. We had one of our dump trucks go out today for head gasket repair, and 2 others come back from respective repairs to the frame and hydraulic system. When we send equipment out, it often takes 1 to 2 weeks to turn it around, so we're trying to get all the plow trucks and winter gear out and back so that when we need them, they're ready.
Now, if you had a mechanic, would he do the head gasket and hydraulic work too? Or is that too much?
It depends on the work. Sometimes we don't have all of the equipment we need, and it would, I'm sure, depend on the mechanic and what we had for tools in-house. Some of the stuff that's too heavy, you just simply can't do it. So we had pretty long winter, so staff and I are trying to use up our vacation before it expires on June 1st. And we appreciate residents' patience with our aged equipment and staffing levels as we try to accomplish ongoing work such as street sweeping, mowing town grounds and maintaining athletic fields, filling potholes, grading dirt roads, and roadside mowing, while also trying to assist other boards and departments with special projects such as setting up elections, building parking lots, and pickleball courts. It has been a goal of mine to get more training for the department. Highway staff and I have recently completed trench safety and fall awareness trainings. One of those was put on by Maya, our insurance company, so we should get some kind of credit for that, I hope.
Yes.
and the other one was put on by the State Department of Public Safety. I've been working on and have now completed highway review of the two new subdivisions going in off Pequot Road, reviewing proposals for annual petroleum underground storage tank compliance, which, have you guys had a chance to look at that? That should be signed before July 30th. June 30th, so we can go in the new fiscal. I'm currently taking a wastewater operations training course offered by Westfield DPW. I've met with paving contractors for FY20 road work. Glendale Road reconstruction work continues. The water lines are all now complete, and they're moving on to drainage. We've reviewed and awarded low bidders on the Hampshire Council of Government Consolidated Purchasing Program, and I've been working with my admin on Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant requirements. And the last thing I have is I've been elected to the Board of Directors of the Massachusetts Tri-County Highway Superintendents Association, and my first meeting will be June 18th.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Any questions for Randall? Do you have that street sweeper on the capital plan somewhere?
Honestly, no. It is not what I consider to be, I mean, we need to sweep the streets, but if the street sweeper's down for a couple of weeks, I can deal with that. You know, you can put it off for a few weeks. I've got a number of plow trucks on my capital plan. Those are crucial equipment. You can't wait 1 to 2 weeks to have your roads plowed.
You can keep repairing the street sweeper then.
We have to. We don't really have a choice.
Maybe that we need both, though, is what I'm saying on the plan.
I would agree, but if I had my druthers, you've got to replace the plow trucks.
Yeah, I'd say put them on, and if the choice comes down the road, make the choice, but at least you got them there.
They're on.
Okay, makes sense.
Or we can look at third-party independent vendors of doing that for us, too, of cost comparison.
Yeah, that's true. Got a lot of streets, though.
This year I did a cost comparison. It looked like 4 weeks of sweeping cost about $17,000.
Yeah.
And we got our repairs done for less than that. So keeping it on the road was cheaper this year.
Did you factor in your time, though, and everything, too? Or?
No.
No, okay. So, but anyway, at least you got to
Time,
compare.
insurance coverage, all of that factors into it.
Brandon, would you suggest that you've got maybe another 3 weeks of sweeping to do, or where are you in the whole overall plan?
It's hard to, I hate putting anything out there because the thing could break down tomorrow and be down for 2 weeks. But if all goes well, and I'll knock on wood, maybe another 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'd say we're probably a third of the way done with town.
Okay.
We've been jumping around a little bit because if, you know, something breaks down a hydraulic hose, I don't want to send it to the other side of town. I keep them kind of local and make sure everything is running smoothly.
Makes sense.
Is there some way to kind of message people in the town that this is what's happening, so that it kind of, you know, I think more information in the, you know, is better than a lot of speculation that we hear. So I think.
Everybody who's reached out to the highway department, I've gotten back to and
Okay, but I
and
mean,
share
is
the
there some
information.
way that you can proactively put it out there rather than respond to requests coming in? That's all. Would save you a lot
Sure,
of
but
time.
again, I'd hate to give people the information, tell everybody it's, for instance, the sweeper came back, it was gone for about a month. It went, it operated for a day and a half and was then down for another 3 days.
I mean, even if you tell people this stuff, I mean, at least puts things in perspective so that people know that it's being worked.
Because they run off the rails.
Sure.
That's, you know, well, you
I mean,
know.
I know you can't address all of the questions and you can't anticipate all the problems you may have, but I think people, you know, they're asking me, and certainly I'm way removed from having an answer. And so I thought if we could just kind of get word out there as to where we are, what's been done, what problems you've had, I think people would be very understanding and appreciate that.
Well, hopefully they're watching this on tape, I guess, tonight, but it's not live.
Okay.
Any other questions for Randall? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Randall.
Next, we have Jen Ramsey, Easthampton Media Update. We're anticipating
I
this
know.
update, Jen.
Good evening. I am Jen Ramsey, Executive Director of Easthampton Media. Hi. I'd like to give you an update on the progress in fixing the signal issues and the status of the equipment upgrade plan that we have for this room. As you know, we've been getting intermittent signal from on live TV in this room, and Easthampton Media is working relentlessly to fix this. Our staff has combed through every piece of hardware and cable to run diagnostic tests. Some days we have signal, some days we don't. We had 2 different charter technicians run tests on the fiber lines, and they said the issues with our equipment. We then sent our equipment out for diagnostic tests by the manufacturer, and they came back in good working order. There was no problem with our gear. We hired 2 different broadcast engineering consultants to comb over all of the cables and hardware in this town hall, the basement, and our studio. Both consultants claim the problem is with the fiber line. So we're getting conflicting conclusions between the broadcast engineers and the charter communications. We have 1 more test to run tomorrow before taking the next step. I promise that we're on top of this issue. It's just been really challenging to pinpoint where the issue actually is.
So what's the next step in case tomorrow doesn't work?
The next step, once we we're doing an end-to-end test on our transmitter and receiver. If it works, then we know the problem's with charter. If it doesn't work, then it's our transmitter and receiver. If that's the case, then we need to purchase a new one, but we're in the middle of equipment upgrades. If we purchase a new one and it's standard definition, but we put high definition gear in this room, then we just purchase a piece of equipment for a couple of weeks until the rebuild. So
high definition one won't dumb down, if you will, to standard
no.
definition?
So I'm kind of it's a conundrum, but really we're gonna know tomorrow what the next step will be. In the meantime, we're in the middle of the bid process right now for equipment upgrades. We will have all new HD cameras, cables, audio, and hardware professionally installed in this room and in the basement. And I expect...
Before you go, we're going to stop you just to ask. So are you talking about these microphones, these cameras, and all that are going to be changed out?
Yes, 100%. And I expect to have a proposal by the end of the month to Ed. I'm working with multiple consultants to try to put together the best package for the best price. So it's been a back and forth between me and the consultants right now, and once we settle on exactly what we're going to put in this room, I'm going to have the proposal, like I said, hopefully end of this month. So I really hope that will fix the problem for us. We're just as frustrated with it, and we want to give you good service. So, and then I just wanted to let you know that this summer Easthampton Media is teaching a 3-part podcasting class for ages 14 to adult at the Edwards Library this summer. It will start Thursday evenings, July 11th. If anyone is interested to learn podcasting, they can sign up at the Edwards Library. We also do one-on-one training, so if anyone can't make that class, then they can certainly contact Easthampton Media, and we're happy to sit down with you. On September 14th, we'll be filming a video for Celebrate Southampton, and we look forward to more collaborations with your town and hope that residents will come see us and learn to create projects.
So tomorrow you said you're going to find out if it's a transmitter or not. You'll have an answer. Can you let Ed know what that answer is?
Definitely.
So he can tell us?
Definitely.
So, questions? I mean, it sounds like all the new equipment's coming in. They're out for bid.
We are working as fast and hard as we can.
Do you know what they're going to look like or what styles?
Well, we're hoping to get rid of the desk microphones as requested, but the problem is this room is very echoey and the slanted ceiling, so we're kind of talking about getting like a ceiling mic, but it may not be the best option. I'm working back and forth with the consultants to try to find that out.
Okay, so once the consultants recommend something, and if it doesn't work, you'll take it out and put something in that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're always getting texts, can't hear you, lean closer.
Yeah, we are, a big part of the can't hear you problem, I think, is in the wiring. Whoever wired this room way before my day did something really weird. When we hired a broadcast engineer to come in and look at it, he pointed out that the wiring was kind of strange. So once we get the whole new equipment, everything will be wired professionally, and we shouldn't have any problems.
Okay, so once you get the new equipment, how long until the new equipment is installed from, say, today on? What do you anticipate?
We're hoping we're going to install this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Any questions? You brought the right answers.
Yeah.
Now, if you can find out tomorrow what the issue is,
I will let Ed know, sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
Okay. Ed, you want to give your report first?
See, first of all, we'll need to find an individual to serve to be appointed as the town's Veteran Service Officer for the upcoming year to replace Mr. Frary. Just to let you know that the Highway Department has filled the cracks at the tennis courts in Conan Park in preparation for the lining and painting of the pickleball courts, courtesy of the COA grant that was received from Senator Humison. Just a reminder that the Cooley Dickinson Urgent Care, which was rescheduled to June 27th from 4 to 6 p.m. in the Big Y Plaza with remarks at 4:30 p.m. John Martin is scheduled to give remarks on behalf of the Select Board for the town, and Francine Tishman has also volunteered to attend.
Sorry, I can't.
Okay.
I had a conflict.
Okay.
You can't make it?
No.
Oh, great. Anybody else on the board want to be there?
Grab that date again?
June 27th,
June 27th,
4 to 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Highlights at 4:30.
Yes. I'll attend with you.
I could possibly go to the beginning, but not stay, so just, if I could make it, I will, but if you can get
Okay.
someone else, that'd be great.
All right. We have received confirmation from the Mass DEP today that the town may proceed and advertise the 2 water department projects for the pumping station and the well rehabilitation and improvement projects. We may need a special meeting of the Select Board on May 15th if any unexpected departmental transfers turn up after the May 25th Select Board meeting.
Yeah, let's say
Yeah,
May
there we go.
15th.
Yeah, I should say July 15th and June 25th. Wishful thinking on my part for the end of the fiscal year. I will be meeting with Pat Carnavale, Director of the Governor's Western Mass Office, tomorrow morning. Go over a few things for the town of Southampton. I expect to receive our executed contract and project agreement for the drinking water supply grant back from the state by the beginning of next week. And we have finally heard from the state concerning the hazard mitigation grant for the water main replacement over the Manhan River, as they have reached out to us and had some questions and needed some clarifications concerning our project and the application thereof. So that's being, those responses are being developed and sent back to them. Old business, we are still awaiting the state approval of the conservation restrictions and baseline reports for Glendale Road and Pomeroy Meadow Road, so they are able to be signed. Kestrel will be able to amend the conservation restriction and be the third-party independent holder of the conservation restriction for the 9-acre property known as the Howland Conservation area and an area known as Manhan Meadows. This was accepted as a gift to the town of Southampton and is needed to meet the new state grant requirements for both of those grants. Upcoming Board of Selectmen meetings, June 25th, and Select Board meeting for July are still to be determined.
So why don't we do July now? I think if it follows the normal, July 9th and 23rd.
I can do the 9th, I can't do the 23rd. That's okay, we're all gonna miss something.
Okay, so want to do the 9th and 23rd, both of you?
That's okay with me, yeah, it's fine.
I will be away the 9th as well.
You're here the 9th, not the 23rd. Okay, so
Be back in time.
no Francine and
Uh,
no Matt. Okay,
But I'll be here
we'll
on
hold
the
it for it.
23rd.
Okay, so the 9th and the 23rd.
Okay.
Anything else, Ed?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, let's start with you. Do you have anything to report on any committee assignments?
No, nothing in particular.
Okay. Francine?
Yes, I feel like a broken record when I talk about the bylaws committee. We do meet, we are working. It is a very arduous process, but we are making progress. I also, the Master Plan Implementation Committee met and is continuing to work on its tracking. of the strategies and looking at areas that perhaps need to be updated. Just to let you know that the MPI will be reporting at the June 25th meeting, along with representatives, and in addition to representation from the Westfield Gas and Electric, the folks who are going to come and talk with us about fiber optics. They were here once before, having a joint meeting with the MPI as we're looking at alternatives. Fiber optics might be one that they might want to consider for recommendation based on what it is that we hear and learn. And then finally, there was a Hampshire Regional High School Committee meeting last night that I missed, so Margaret is going to take a couple of minutes and update everybody on what transpired last night.
Margaret Larson, Hampshire Regional School Committee, and Tammy, chime in if you need to. So the last meeting of the year, there is often a lot of housekeeping issues, field trips, etc. There is one fun field trip, very fun field trip planned for next year for juniors and seniors. They're going to London and Paris and Berlin to visit sites associated with World War II and the Cold War. Primarily for students who are studying U.S. history and European history at the time. So that's fully funded by the students. Pretty awesome opportunity. Let's see, we have the new school improvement plan, which I'll make sure that all of you get a copy of. That's the one done by the school council. And every year we try to pick an initiative, and for the next year it's dealing with student anxiety. Because we are seeing more students, as we talked about, being hospitalized or missing school due to anxiety issues. And one of the decisions that we've made is to limit access to the portal. There's a parent portal and a student portal to access your electronic grades. And students and parents were visiting the portal multiple times a day. And that was causing a lot of stress. So, for example, a teacher might put in a new assignment in the morning, meaning to enter the grades later, and it automatically defaults to zeros in the morning, and was getting phone calls and emails from parents saying, why did my child get a zero? Before the children even know about it. So it was just causing a lot of stress for people. So access to that is going to be limited to 2 days a week. But the teachers will still have the requirement to post their grades and do everything that they need to do. It's just the access will be limited. Still going to be available. So I'll make sure you get a copy of that. There's been a number of a bit of work around our lockdown procedures. So what has been recommended to the principal is that they do these lockdown drills at different times of the day, so that you're seeing what happens in different circumstances. So, for example, the last one they did was before school even started, to see what happened with kids coming into school. So 192 kids coming into school, they hadn't come in the door yet, and so that obviously raised some issues about how we deal with that and how we set up an alarm outside.
So these are unannounced?
These are unannounced, yes.
Okay.
So it's, it's kind of a, and the police is there to monitor it and give suggestions. We did have a wonderful visitor, Abigail Thibodeau. She's an 8th grader from Southampton, and last fall she observed during one of the lockdown drills. She was in one of the band rooms, and because of the noise in the band room, they were unable to hear the announcement over the loudspeaker that this was a lockdown drill. So she took it upon herself to contact 80 different schools throughout Massachusetts to see how they handle similar situations. So one of the ideas that she's working on is to deal with the lights separately. So there's there's noise and then there's lights. And so how do we utilize the lights as a signal to kids? So we're kind of working on that.
Did you say 80 schools? 80?
She contacted 80 schools. Yeah.
God bless
And
her.
she got up and gave a presentation to us. She was remarkable. So Southampton resident, we were all very impressed with that. Let's see. So we've got a couple things I just wanted to tell you about Next year's budget, we have 130 choice students coming in, which is approaching 20% of our school population, and we all feel like that's pretty much enough. You know, we don't want to be messing with our culture of our school too much, and so the principal is going to dial back on any more acceptances. We don't accept seniors anyway for school choice that aren't already at the school. And then we have quite a few juniors who are coming in choice, and so if we add any more juniors, we would have to start adding more class sections, and we don't want to do that, because that's when you get into actually costing us money.
Too many potatoes in the pot.
Right, right. So we want to make sure that we're, cognizant of all these issues that we've all, discussed, and I want you to be assured that the principal is definitely on that. So in terms of choice out, we have 65 students choicing out and 25 charter out. And so the choice out is, the $5,000 a year, and then the charter is what the charter is. So whatever
How does
they're
that compare
charging us.
to this?
Charter's expensive.
It's
No, I mean, how many students?
we're getting a few more charter out,
Okay.
but one nice thing that we're starting to see more of is that we're getting more students coming into our life skills program and to our Clark affiliated program for students who have hearing loss. And so that's about $40,000 a student that we get for those students. So they are not choicing in, it's called a tuition in.
Gotcha.
So they are tuitioning in because these are special programs
Their school
that we
district
offer.
pays for that?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. Now, obviously we have students from our own district who are in those programs as well, but they don't cost us $40,000, so that's kind of how that works. Let's see, what else was I going to tell you? We have, we're undergoing the evaluation for the superintendent right now, so there'll be recommendations by the end of the month
So
on
how does that work? Is every school committee member get input?
Yes,
What
it's
about
an email.
the rest of the staff?
Right, so this year they did something new. They followed a new DESI procedure to do what's called a 360 evaluation. So there was an evaluation with teachers and with administrative staff. And we saw the results of that, the top line results. So we saw that, and then the superintendent gave us, 30 different documents, a lot of evidence to support the various things that he's been involved with. And then we all do this online survey. It's done by DESI. And
Is that a public document once it's done?
once it's done, yes. So all of our names are attached to it. So you can see how we all did. Yeah. It's very thorough. Yeah, and we can't, obviously there's some things we don't necessarily know we can't answer, which would make some sense. But then the ones that we can, if any of us decide to put needs improvement or unsatisfactory as one of our items, we have to give evidence and back it up. Yes, we have to give a reason. So it seems like a very solid system of evaluation to me. There's something else. We are still undergoing negotiations with the teachers. We feel like we are coming near the home stretch. We have 2 more meetings scheduled. We're hoping that maybe we don't have to use both of them, but we might have to. So I can't talk about it much more than that, but that's it. Am I missing anything, Tammy? I can't. We graduated 89 seniors, 87 seniors, and then 2 non-traditional seniors. And
What class size?
it was,
Did everybody graduate?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
That- I
which
guess
was the
that's the
first
key,
time in a
yeah.
while that everyone has. Usually there's 1 or 2 that might have to.
Two non-traditional.
Oh, so those are either students who might be in a program that allows them to stay in school longer, like life skills or something like that, so they may not be a traditional graduate, or,
Age 20, where they age out at
yes,
21, 22,
yes, mhm,
22.
yeah. So that's, and then Tammy Walunas organized our pancake breakfast, which was a big hit, and she can organize all my events for me, and I would
Was
be
that the
really
senior
happy.
breakfast?
The senior
I know you
breakfast.
put a lot of work into that, so I was going to ask how that went.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Yeah.
And this year, 87, 88 students wasn't so bad. Next year, 127. The year after that, 140 something. So that will be a little bit more challenging. But no, Tammy does a fantastic job. I think that's it.
Any questions for Margaret? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Matt?
The update that I have an update for PQB. So PQB, this is mostly for town employees, but it's worth just throwing out there as a reminder as all of us listen to this. But the PQB is asking for inputs regarding wording on the appropriate sections of the PQB rules and regulations. Those regulations were written by PQB and approximately took 2 years to complete the rewrite of that entire document. But we recognize that there are probably sections that may need language changes or adjustments to better understand the intent of each of those sections. Our intent of asking for these things is not to make major changes, but to entertain language changes that might make everything more understandable and readable. So we're asking that each of the town departments, if they have corrections or language changes, to submit them to Art Lawrence or the PQB, a town of Southampton email address. And we're just basically asking you for the name the section that you're referring to, the current language, and then what your proposed change would be. And we're looking to gain those submittals by July 1st so that we can review them. So that's an update from PQB. I do not have any updates from the Department of Health. And then Capital Committee, I don't really have any updates other than I just want to indicate, my support for the decisions that committee and which includes me, made during, before town meeting, where we approved certain capital projects, 3 of which are very important and will be on the ballot in the upcoming election in a couple of weeks, or it's in a week. And I just want to reiterate the 3 of them. I mean, there's a dump truck that we desperately need, and the Capital Improvement Committee saw pictures of this. Some of us even went and looked at it. And if you look at, and I listen to this and sometimes get caught up in it, but it disappoints me a little bit to view things like Facebook and watch the dialogue that goes on some of these forums, where it's crystal clear to me that I think people are well-intentioned, and I try to take that in and think that they are well-intentioned, but there's also a part of me that feels like they're very misinformed. And I just want to reiterate that the work of the people in this town that work for the town, and also the people that work and volunteer on these committees, do put in the time to do the due diligence and to work on behalf of all of the citizens of this town. We do protect your money. We run on a shoestring over here, and we have a tendency to kick things down the road for that purpose. And so I just want to run through the 3 things that are important to me, and I think important to the town, that we did our due diligence on. If you'd like more information on that, you're welcome to come to a town meeting, or you're welcome to come to a select board meeting, or you're welcome to write to us or speak to Ed as well. We all have this information, and it was presented at town meeting, and I think pretty well. But the 3 items are a very important dump truck, and Randall, it was very timely for Randall to be giving his report on this, but you can see clearly that he's juggling different things in his department, and that's an important item that's been kicked down the road for a number of years, and we all want our streets plowed. The Norris School has a number of smaller capital improvements that have also been kicked down the road, and if you go to that school, you'll notice things like doors and carpets and sinks and stuff like that. They amount to a smaller number, but they're also, they collectively will patch up that school for years to come. And then there's also the East Street Bridge, which we've done a lot of due diligence on, both as a board and also on the Capital Committee side. And I think the important thing with regard to that bridge is, number one, it will ultimately need to be fixed. And this is my opinion, is that we have funding from the state right now to be able to help us to fix it. So that needs to be factored in and considered down the line for that.
Anything else?
So that's it.
Very good, thanks. I just want to reiterate on East Street Bridge, we have $1 million grant that if we don't get this done, we stand to lose that, so.
And if we lose that, the bridge still needs to be fixed, and we
Then it'll
run the
cost
risk of
us
shouldering that burden all of ourselves.
2.6 million instead of
Down the line.
1.6, right?
And Margaret, do you have, you're on the committee with, did I miss anything? Did I leave anything out that's important? Okay. So, I mean, I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up is that I want to make sure that people understand that we do our due diligence. We're not careless with your money at all. And these projects are important, and they're only going to get more expensive. And just to remind you, the other things that I see on these forums, in Randall, I hate to keep bringing it up, but if you're upset that your streets aren't getting the sand picked up, just think about how upset you'll be if your street doesn't get plowed or sanded as quickly. I mean, personally, for me, I feel like that's a way more of an emergent situation than having the sand picked up at the end of the season. People want to be able to get out to work and get home, and we need to have the appropriate equipment to be able to do that. And so, just my 2 cents, but at the same time, I feel it's important.
Yeah. And on the Facebook in Randall on street sweeping, you see a conversation going back and forth. The quick answer that we put on there is, call the highway department. They can tell you about it. Rather than going back and forth complaining about it, call the person in charge and he'll be glad to tell you.
I don't get caught up in it. I just read it and become disheartened.
I just put a comment saying, call the highway department. That's the best way. And the answer was the machine's down for a while, so.
Can I just go back to the PQB handbook?
Yeah.
I know we're asking the departments for input, but didn't we sign or enter into some type of an arrangement with an outside with a regional HR group that hopefully could provide us some technical assistance? Has that ever materialized, Ed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of either.
Do you remember when we agreed to write a letter saying we would join this group if it were formed in the absence of having, small towns don't have HR departments, and we desperately could use that type of outside.
I mean, it sounds amazing. I just don't recall.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that the Hampshire Council of Governors had brought up, so.
I see.
What do you mean?
So there
What does
goes
that mean? What? Well, what do you mean they brought it up? Are we a part of this, or?
They were
Oh.
trying to get support for a grant, but,
see.
they will be defunct
Okay.
in a few months.
Oh,
All right,
yes,
I
that's
was
okay.
looking for some
Yeah, I
help,
got it.
but, all right.
Okay.
Okay, Finance Committee was last week. I was out sick, so I did not go to that. Public Safety Complex Committee meeting is this Thursday at 4 o'clock here. And Open Space Review Committee is this Thursday at 6 o'clock here. And the Planning Committee is on the 19th. So I'll report back on those 3 at the next meeting. Okay, so old business, the fiscal 19 expenditures review. We've got it in our packet. It goes through 6/6/19. I only came up with 1 or 2 items I had a question on. We should be at like 92% if we're 11 months through, if my math is right. And most things seem, on that or below, which is great again. One of them was the EMS building expenses is like 156%, about $7,300 out of whack. Is that going to be covered through something else, do you know, Ed? Another line item, or Vicky?
Go ahead, Vicki.
Vicki Morrow, Pomeroy Meadow Road. Yeah, that's one of the budget transfers that we'll go over this evening. That was to repair the boiler that broke in the...
That was part of that boiler repair?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Great. Does anybody else have anything while I'm...
Just the Title I, they're at 1,700% over the plan. That's a reimbursement?
Yes, so what happens with the grants, especially with school grants and some town grants, you need to spend that down, and then you do what's called a drawdown with the state grants for the school, and then the school gets the money and they send it to us. So they have to There's a certain period each month where they are only allowed to do those drawdowns, and so most of that will get reimbursed at that point in time.
And is that the same with the school REAP grant?
Yeah, all the grants for the schools are all pretty much the same way. They're all reimbursable, correct?
And that all happens before the end of the fiscal year, or when does that happen?
Yes,
Just-
yep.
Good.
So any other questions? Again, 99% look very good.
I'm sure I have some.
How do you, I mean, we have the treasurer and the accountant here, which is kind of awesome. I mean, how do both of you feel about this, both from an expense standpoint and from a revenue standpoint? Are you?
We don't have the revenue.
No, I know, but they are both here. Look at it both.
Do either of you
Now, do
want
you
to
guys have
comment
any-
on that?
Any overall comments or general thoughts?
I guess I would say that the expenses are on target, as John Martin mentioned. I don't foresee any last-minute transfers, possibly for that July 15th date. But again, you have departments who, the larger departments who have a larger amounts of money, who potentially, I don't say save their money, but know that if an emergency comes up or something happens, and we've had quite a few of those with the buildings in particular, that, if they didn't need it for a specific item, like for instance, Randall might decide, well, I'm gonna do guardrails because I have some money that I didn't need for the building or for fixing the street sweeper or whatever. He will say, okay, well now I'm gonna go out and do something else with that money.
Done the mechanical repairs this month.
I know. So those types of things, do happen at the end of the year. I don't foresee a lot of them, but that will potentially happen.
But I mean, I guess our concern is as long as they're valid
Yeah,
expenditures, that's
yeah.
fine, not just spend the money for the sake of
No,
spending.
no. That usually, and I've said that to people who've asked those questions. I'm like, you might need some supplies. I get it, but if you have $5,000 left, don't buy $5,000 worth of, pencils and pens kind of thing, unless you know, which is
No,
kind of
not
ridiculous.
even if you know, right?
No, but for instance, next year, your budget is so tight because you have budgeted, you need repairs for this, you need to do this, and this. So you buy those extra supplies this year because next year, you're not gonna have any money for supplies,
Well,
if that potentially
Again,
could happen.
If Randall's
But
buying
$5,000 is a lot
additional
of money.
truck parts, that makes sense, but if he's buying magazine subscriptions, for a bad example.
Yeah, no.
3 years ago, I had money left at the end of the year. I bought paper because the more paper you buy, the better price you get on it.
Yeah.
I didn't have to buy paper again until this week.
Yeah.
3 years.
And he wouldn't have had any money this year
Copy paper,
to buy
you
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess,
you know what I mean, those types of
And I
things
got a better price
happen.
on it because I bought volume.
yeah, as long as you have a place to store
So
it.
there are some advantages. to
Yeah.
doing
Certain
things like
types of those things do happen, so there will be some,
As long
say
as
last minute
as long as
screwing
it's
around, so to
appropriate,
speak,
yeah,
but
makes
it's
sense.
not thousands and thousands of dollars, so,
I mean, some of that's just good planning,
Yeah.
so.
So Jen, do you have anything to say on the revenue side?
You don't have to, it's just if you had overarching thoughts.
Jennifer Day, Treasurer Collector. I don't really have, I think the revenue looks like it's all on target. You don't have, I know you wanted to see revenue posted through April 30th at the last meeting. That is done, so I don't know why there's no
It
revenue.
is done?
Yeah,
You
it's
have
been
the revenue
done.
report
You should have,
Through the first week of,
and it's even
May.
done partially through May
Yeah, the
now.
first week of May.
So,
We scratched off here.
but there's
so
no
let's see if we got it.
revenue.
There should be, because when Joyce sent it out, she asked me when it was posted through, which was the first week of May, I think it was the 5th or
Yeah.
something.
She only sent out the expense report. She only sent out the
Yeah,
expense
she
report.
only sent the expense
Oh,
report.
the
but
one
it
just
should-
just recently, like last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is that when we get to this time, she usually sends out those more frequently so people can know what their expenses are, so that they don't give us bills that they can't pay for.
So,
So they did
when's
So
the
you don't
last
have
one?
the revenue now because it was done on the 15th and the 30th,
So the last
the
one we
months.
got was the latest one?
was the latest one, was May 30th, correct?
Okay.
So that's fine, but how do you feel about it? Francine, I'm not picking on you, but you always look at the revenue report, and I do too, and you worry a little bit that we're
No, there was nothing, yes.
Jen would, Jen looks at this all the time.
It looks pretty good to me, I mean,
I think it's on target
Yeah.
as far as the
Yeah, I
revenue
know
goes.
if the money wasn't there, obviously the checks wouldn't be clearing, I understand.
Yeah.
But are we, looking ahead and knowing and realizing, are we where we should be? Is there gonna be any significant shortfall? And, I mean, that's.
Yeah, I haven't noticed any significant shortfalls for revenue. Everyone's paying taxes. I mean, we're doing really good there. I mean, even for this fiscal year 18 for tax takings, we only had to place 4 people in the Gazette today. So that was a lot less than last year. So I think overall it was, better. I don't know. So
Good, yeah.
anyways.
John, I have a couple questions if you don't
Sure.
mind.
No, go ahead.
Just being the newbie on the board,
No,
if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Indulge me a minute. I just wanted to understand, on education, for example, the Student Activities Fund, only about half has been spent, and I'm kind of curious about that when we're at the end of the school year. It's only, it's a small amount. It was a $10,000 budget, and there's $6,000 left in the school activities,
So the
Student Activities Fund.
activities fund, that's kind of more of like a
Activities fund.
revolving
Just-
fund,
This-
right? And they're,
Yeah, that's kind of the school collects money for buses, when they go on field trips, for activities. And so some of that doesn't necessarily get used right away. And that will carry over from year to year. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then another one on the revolving funds, the police outside detail seems to be way over.
Yes.
And
Currently, how the police outside detail works now is we, as the town, pay the police officers, and then we wait to get paid invoices from those particular vendors that used our officers. Timing issue. Sometimes people don't pay right away. I know there's an issue with some Eversource bills that are quite large. So,
yeah, it's definitely kind of an issue. I mean, we have bills that are outstanding back to fiscal year 18, should I say?
yeah, because we did send out new
So
bills for
we're-
those other ones.
We're paying the officers through payroll as soon as the detail's submitted, but the outside vendors aren't necessarily paying the town. And so that's,
They're taking it from that account and then putting it back in.
there are some towns that do it the opposite, and they will not pay the officers until the money is submitted for payment.
By the
And that's kind of
vendor.
how they collect from the vendor, because then the police will, make sure that that collection process is done, because they want, to get paid. So it's, that is the thought. It's something Vicki and I talked
I just
about.
think the
but-
danger is that that gap can
Right.
widen really quickly without,
Yeah, yeah.
without really understanding.
So,
Because it is in their contract that the vendor should pay us first before we pay them out. We've never done that. I brought it up when I first got here, and I've heard, at accounting classes and schools are like, yeah, good luck with that. Because, good luck trying to change it. And even though people have that in their particular contracts, CBA agreements, those communities pay the officers first and then get the money later. Luckily enough with ours, even though we have some outstanding bills at the end of the year, we can justify the shortage by invoices that were recently submitted and paid out those last few weeks of June, because the DOR knows that we're not going to get that by June 30th.
It was kind of receivable.
Correct, correct.
Yeah, as long as we don't go too wide of a gap like Chris was saying.
No, last year, I think there was 30-some-odd thousand at the end of the year, but we did bill quite a bit those last, like 2 or 3 weeks of June. So we were able to, say, yeah, this 30 grand is from these particular
It
bills.
came in okay.
Yep.
Is there any bad debts in that area?
We might have to collect, yeah.
there's,
We'd have to look at the
yeah, I would
spreadsheet,
have to look at the spreadsheet to see what's not collected.
Yeah.
because we did send out second invoices last year
Yeah.
in order to,
So last year, my department did send out invoices to all of the vendors that haven't paid, saying, reminders that this is due. We did get some response, not everyone sent payment, but, we did that. I had my assistant treasurer collector do that. It's kind of it's not really like, it's nothing my department did before.
Yeah.
Usually the police will initiate the collection of those funds, so.
If you were gonna do the aging on the overdue accounts, do they go way back, some of them? Or is it
I would
just
have to look, but I
14
think,
was the earliest that
Was
we
it
sent
14?
last year, yeah.
2014?
yeah.
But Mike worked with them and they did, I think we did get some of those bills in. We did get some of those
We
payments
did
in.
get some, yeah.
What's the gap right now?
It looks like 52,000.
How much?
52,000.
I think there's probably a lot outstanding right now from what's the Glendale Road project.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
that makes sense.
and, yeah, so,
That would make
Yeah,
sense.
but that would be, I mean, that would be an easy, I mean, I don't want to say too easy, but whoever's whether it's you or the police chief, the police chief's new, so maybe he is not aware of some of these, is that?
We
is that
do the
possible?
billing, we
Yeah,
do
we
the
just-
well,
billing.
this is something that we definitely, like, Vicki and I were actually going to sit down with the police chief and discuss it, because there's not, I guess, enough communication right now as to collecting the ones that aren't being paid.
Yeah.
Like, like you said, I don't think he realizes, like, if he's supposed to do it, maybe he doesn't even know that.
I wonder if there could be like you suggested, the way that other towns might do it. I wonder if we could do a hybrid of at least half the payment, an estimated payment would have to be given, at the same time the detail with authorized or something like that, so that we're not as far out of pocket as this seems to
Yeah.
show.
If we had some kind of a
leverage.
standing, like boilerplate agreement that we would issue to the ones who typically do, like Charter, Eversource, some individual, construction
Right,
companies and
Normandy
so
Gilbert
forth,
for them.
so that they knew up front what our terms are.
Or
I
what we
mean,
just
if we have
follow
no
what the CBA
recourse-
says.
Yeah.
It says that
Yeah.
they don't get paid until we get paid by the vendor.
I
We
mean,
should follow what
especially
they
with,
sign,
there
right?
was a lot of that on the
Totally
treasurer
fine with
collector listserv, and especially for smaller communities. That's, the way they do it, because, the negative $50,000, like, that hurts, like, if you're not a big city.
Well, that's
I mean, that's-
one position
so-
somewhere.
But what in the
That's a-
instance if they don't agree with you and they just refuse to pay? What recourse?
No, the vendor, the police detail wouldn't get paid out to the officers in their check until the vendor did pay. So the police would have to collect that money to get paid. So, I mean,
That's not fair to them,
that's in their contract.
yeah.
That's what their contract
I
states,
understand.
yeah.
I understand
Not
that.
necessarily though, Francine. I mean, if they're in charge of submitting it, then they gotta follow that all the way through. It would be just like you or I, or
Exactly.
whoever has the type of job that it submits an expense report.
Well-
Like, if you submit an expense report and you don't get paid, you follow up to get the expense
Exactly,
report back.
but
It's
if-
on you to go get that.
It's
If
kind,
the vendor refuses to pay,
it's kind of like our plumbing inspectors, our electrical inspector. If they don't collect the fee for the
don't get
inspections they
paid.
do, they don't get paid.
No.
Yeah, so, we need to get all of the information, but
Yeah. Can we get a list of all the companies that owe us money, how much, and how far back it goes?
Yeah, I have a whole spreadsheet
Okay.
made
So
out.
can you
and,
send
yeah.
that to Ed so he can send it to us?
Sure, yeah,
for the next
Yeah.
board meeting.
sure.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be great, thanks.
I have two more tiny questions.
Yeah, that was already a great one, so keep going.
On the special revenue, special revenue category, there's a library state grant, and just kind of watching out for the library. It was it looks like maybe a $20,000 revised budget, and there's a balance of 11,000. So I'm just wondering if a grant expires, or is that something that
Revised budget?
doesn't have to be
20 grand
used during
for
the fiscal
library?
year?
No, those special revenue funds can keep carried over from year to year.
Okay. Some grants I'm familiar with just have,
No, that comes out on our cherry sheets. and
Okay.
And that comes monthly, but I'm not quite sure why there's 20.
it was, they had a previous
Oh,
year
yeah.
balance.
So
previous year.
that's something that comes on the cherry sheet. It's like $9,900 a year, and believe you me, Barbara knows where every penny is that she's got.
Yeah,
Just want to be sure. And I think the very last one is just the whole gift fund account. I'm not totally sure that I understand what it all is, but again, it looks like very little has been spent out of the entire account.
Anything that's not general fund, which is the first 4 pages, gets rolled over year.
Okay.
So the gift fund, people say, hey, I want to give you $100. So the police department, fire department, highway, almoners, whichever, they can use it at their discretion for anything they choose.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you both. Okay. Jump over the old business. So new business, as I understand it, Ed, the first two haven't been finalized by the state, so we can't vote?
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to skip over the first two items that are new business. Now, the next two items, board to reorganize and to assign liaisons, that was a holdover from last meeting. Rini sent me an email and asking if we could hold it over one more time, and if we didn't want to do that, she gave me her choices for liaison. So what's the pleasure here? Do you want to hold it over one more week, or do you want to do it now?
If we can all make it next week, I think
Yeah.
we can get it all done at once along with
Let's hold it over.
next
What do you mean by
meeting,
next week? I
along
was
with
like, what are we doing?
the election of officers,
25th.
yeah.
Yeah, let's look at, make sure we're all here.
I'm planning on it. Thus laid plans, but yes.
So, sounds like everybody's here?
Yes.
Want to just hold it over?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Debt exclusion ballot questions. This is, you're going to do a presentation here, Ed?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Want to do it on my computer?
And this is why, to me, it's so disappointing that this is not being broadcast live at this time.
Will it be broadcast by the 18th?
By the 18th, will this,
Oh, good.
you know, is it like something that'll be broadcast tomorrow?
Ryan, is this up there tomorrow?
Thank you.
You want this, Ed?
Yes, I will need that.
Pull. He's going to do debt exclusion ballot questions. The hope was that people at home would see it.
TV's doing right now. We're gonna hit the mark, or are we gonna miss a deadline?
Would you mind getting the light?
We're not missing a deadline by this, are we? By not being on TV right now?
It's on the agenda.
You want to order pizza now? Or
Yeah, pizza should go now. I'm totally with you.
Oh, great.
Your password has expired.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put it up on this. Let's put it up on the screen, Ed. Got your pencils ready?
How can it not mix?
mic's not on, but.
All right. Awesome, thank you. So Southampton special election is next Tuesday, June 18th. There are 3 debt exclusion questions on the ballot. The first one is, shall the town of Southampton be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay costs for the construction fees, permits, engineering, design, temporary or permanent easements, or any other eligible costs associated with the construction of a new East Street Bridge, and to the demolition of the existing East Street Bridge, including any and all incidental and related costs? Yes or no? Ballot question 2 is, shall the town of Southampton be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay costs for the purchase of a new dump truck with plow and sander body for the highway department, including any and all costs incidental or related thereto? Yes or no? And question 3 is, shall the town of Southampton be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay costs for the Norris Elementary School Improvement Project, including design, bidding fees, permits, and construction consisting of sink replacement in the science labs classrooms, replacement of carpeting in several of the classrooms, which is actually a wing, replacing and repairing some of the exterior doors in the school, as well as repairs and caulking of the roof gutters, roof drains, and roof drain scuppers, and repairs to the exterior masonry and mortar of the building, including any and all other costs incidental or related thereto? Yes or no? And this is an analysis of the 3 ballot questions, and all 3 are debt exclusions. So if they were approved, they would go on the tax rate, but only for the period of time that the borrowing or the term of the borrowing occurred, and then they would fall off. So ballot question 1, the East Street Bridge, the entire ask, which was approved by the town meeting, is $1,600,000. And this would be utilized in leverage with the $1 million Mass Works grant that the town has received. So the entire cost of the bridge is 2.6, but we're asking for 1.6 as a debt exclusion. The estimated term would be over a 20-year period, so the average yearly payment of that debt would be $116,700, and my eyes are failing, $31. The cost per thousand of valuation per year, as the estimate would be 16 cents per $1,000 of valuation. Ballot question 2 is the highway department dump plow truck. The entire amount of the bond would be $250,000. The estimated term would be over a 10-year period. So the average yearly payment would be $30,844. That is equivalent to a cost per thousand of valuation of 4 cents per thousand. Ballot question number 3 is the Norris School facility improvements. $97,800 would be the term of the amount of the bond and the borrowing. The estimated term would be over 10 years. So that is a average yearly payment of $12,066, or 2 cents per thousand of valuation per year to the taxpayer. The total of that is $159,641. per year on average, and that total is, for all three projects together, if they all passed, would be 22 cents per thousand of valuation per year. To note, we would not be borrowing these amounts until we were into fiscal year 20, which meant the principal payment would not be due until fiscal year 21. There currently is some debt that will retire. Our last payment will be due in fiscal year 20, which is the Hampshire Regional renovations. That currently, this is the upcoming fiscal year would be the last year of payment. It's $270,810 for the year. That in itself would be 36 cents cost per thousand evaluation per year, which is going to be falling off. So actually the net difference, if you wanted to look at it that way, would be 14 cents of savings from what is falling off to what we're asking to go on. Next slide, please. So here's the calculations for on the 20-year term of the East Street Bridge for the $1.6 million. And I'm just going to pull out from there. It goes from the average single-family house evaluation for anywhere from $150,000 to $630,000. Our average single-family house is approximately a little under $300,000, so I'm just going to use the $300,000 mark. So for the average person in that $300,000 house, the cost to them per year over that 20-year period would be $46.66 for that project as a debt exclusion. The next slide will show you the calculation for the Highway Department dump truck, and for the same average $300,000 house, that dump truck would cost you over a 10-year period $12.30 per year as a debt exclusion. And then the third slide will show you the calculations on the Norris School, elementary school improvement projects, and financing that $97,800 over a 10-year period on that average $300,000 house would be $4.81 per year for the 10-year period. And if you totaled all three of them together, the total of all three of them, if they pass together, is, I believe, $63.77.
Per year on a $300,000 house.
On a $300,000 house, correct. Okay. Ballot question one is the East Street Bridge, if you want to go on. Why is this bridge important to Southampton and the area? And this is the presentation that was used at the special town meeting in February. One, the community is basically a bedroom community that supports the surrounding community's economic growth with housing for the workforce. Two, as the area around Southampton economic growth expands in Holyoke, Westfield, and other communities, this roadway has become a major artery to them. And three, further, it is a vital link to the interstates of 91 and 90. This is just an area map showing you where that East Street Bridge is in relation to Route 10 and the town hall. And you can see the star in the center of the picture.
That's where the bridge is.
That's where the bridge is, correct.
And the yellow line is the railroad track?
Yes. Yes. Here's an old picture. The bridge was constructed some 80 to 90 years ago in the 1930s. This was a time when traffic was light and vehicles were of a much simpler design and lighter. The population of Southampton at that point was around 1,000 residents. Here's the East Street. The changing seasons have taken a toll on this structure. On the left, you can see some of the roadway worn away, and on the right you can see one of the potholes on it. You can also start to see the concrete railings as they have deteriorated on the sides.
Is that you, Randall?
And on this photo is a good example of the deterioration of the concrete railings on the side of the roadway. You can also see one of the areas that was patched and the white line put over the top of it. And here's a close-up. You can see the concrete is almost totally eroded on half of that railing. And here's a photo of the bridge itself, and you can see how the railings have deteriorated. You can see some of the potholes out there in the road. Yeah. Yeah. The bridge is a key link to all the surrounding communities, and the rebuilding of this corridor, the town will enhance the economic growth of this area. This project would leverage the MassWorks grant of $1 million, which the town received from the state, to go towards the total East Street Bridge replacement cost of $2,600,000. Without the MassWorks grant, the entire $2,600,000 would need to be appropriated by the town and added to the tax levy if we had to replace it on our own in the future. Ballot question 2 is the Highway Department dump truck, which is $250,000. This is a debt exclusion vote. On the left, you can see some of the underframing of the truck itself and the rot and the rust that are there. On the right, you can see an overall view and see how the body of the truck is starting to wear away. This dump plow truck being replaced is a 1996 model, which has body and frame rot and rust. It has other mechanical issues, which we won't go into now, but these trucks are used in when used in municipal snow and ice operations, will usually last between 12 to 15 years until they have to be replaced. This truck has served the town for over 20 years. It's been a good service, but it is time to replace that truck. Ballot question number 3 is the facility improvements to the William E. Norris School. The total is $97,800. Sinks and adding hot water and related materials to the science lab classrooms, and the sinks are a requirement by our building codes and plumbing codes where science labs are in place. That's $9,000. Carpeting in numerous rooms, which is actually a whole wing, is $28,500. Doors being replaced and repaired for the exterior of the building is $48,500. The gutters and caulking in the gutters and downspouts being repaired is $10,500, and the masonry work required on the front pillars is $1,300. The total is $97,800. This is a photo of some of the doors that are worn and would be replaced on the left. On the right, you can see those two dark marks on the masonry surface above the windows, about a third of the way in from each side. That's where the gutters are leaking and the water is coming down, affecting the windows and the trim around them and the masonry. On the left is some of the masonry around one of the vents, which is starting to wear away, that will need to be repaired. And on the right is a corner of one of the worst exterior doors that needs replacement. You can see how it is actually the door itself and the framework has started to rot out. And this one, it might be a little bit hard to see in the photograph, but if you look about probably 4/5 of the way up, you will see kind of those lighter seams in the carpet, and that is what happens when the humidity starts coming out. This carpet will actually start to buckle and rise. It can rise up to 2 or 3 inches, and it is becoming, because of that, is becoming a a safety hazard, a tripping hazard. And that is it for the presentation.
Chief, could you have lights? Thanks.
I almost just trying to steal your paperwork.
So Ed, are we gonna have this to hand out before the actual election?
Here, you want your zip this?
Can that be done? I thought when you have to be 150 feet away.
It would be. It would be.
Can you do what?
Hand it out, but you gotta be 150 feet away.
You can have it available. It's 24 pages long.
I was just thinking of the impact of how much each would cost.
Maybe we'll have
Yeah,
Is
we-
that-
we
That's
could-
really
we could-
minimal.
We couldn't do that, and the other thing I was thinking of is putting it on the town website,
Yep.
the
that'd be
whole
good.
presentation,
Yep.
for anybody that wanted to look at it, so.
I think that'd be good. Because if you look at the impact, it's very minimal. And if you think of the debt that's rolling off in fiscal '20, you'll actually get a credit back on your taxes.
And
Can you put this one page,
Yeah.
or send me this one page with the 22 cents, so that I can get that?
I can send you anything you would like, Tammy.
Yeah, because I agree with Tammy. If you could get, the simpler the information, the easier it's gonna be for people to comprehend. And if you used this one that, came up to the 22 per thousand, and then used the scale on the 22 cents per thousand, just pick maybe, like you said, 200,000, 300,000 property value, so that people would understand that we're somewhere between $40 and $80 a year. I think people could understand that a lot easier than this whole presentation.
I think any kind of a handout too, we don't need to worry about the photos. People have seen the photos before, I think, too. So the essential is just this amount of information, because I think people are confusing it with an override, which I think we have to be very clear that this is not an override. And we have to be clear that the implication of this, if we don't do the East Street Bridge and approve this and do a yes vote on this, then we are losing the $1 million matching grant. I mean, that is, got to be very clear to people that that's what we're risking here if we don't fully understand what we're voting for.
And if we could prevail and ask Robert, if there was some simpler write-up, could it ever be in the newsletter? No?
Robert Fuller, 15 East Street. Anything that's objective, that's factual, or when something comes in that's editorial, then there needs to be the invitation for those who are against something. So,
This isn't factual, I mean, just numbers wouldn't do it. Okay.
thank you. Conflict. Thank you.
I can do it.
Okay.
We talked, I think, at the last meeting about maybe getting a reporter from the Gazette to come and talk, or at least get the information out so that it could also get a wider publication.
That's a good idea. If we
Can't
can
do
get
it by the town, by the Southampton News, that at least it gets out in other ways so that more people have a chance of seeing it. I mean, I'm not sure how many people are on the Southampton community website or Facebook page. I know a lot are, but maybe several aren't on Facebook. So we've got to figure out something else to get it out so more people really understand what the impact is. Handing it out at the meeting is fine, but, if you're coming to vote, you're coming to vote probably with your mind made up whether you know the real
Yeah.
facts or not.
Yeah.
And are you
You
really
gotta
gonna
get
stand
more
at the
people
door
out.
and spend 10 minutes to read whatever's been given to you before you vote? I don't know. I would doubt that a lot of people would do that. So I think whatever else we can do, word of mouth, whatever, but let's see if we can also maybe get it in the Gazette
Or
Yeah.
Channel 22.
or Channel 22, something.
Are you gonna do Facebook page? Okay.
Ed, can you engage with the Gazette reporter? Or if not, give me a name and a number, I'll call.
I don't think we have a reporter right now, but I can engage with the Gazette.
Okay.
Yeah, try
This
to
guy
make.
How
Dustin is the
about-
one that always calls.
Channel 40 News
And 22.
in 22. We might know somebody on Channel 40.
I know somebody at the news. I could ask.
So if you want to ask that?
I'll ask her.
Okay. So Matt will follow up with the news.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just looking down the list, under licenses and permits, there's Brenda La Magdalene. Is she here? Okay, good. I'll leave it down there. I would say if you're sitting here, I'd just pop it up to get it done for you so you can leave. But Okay, departmental transfers, end of year. Vicky? We all have a handout here. This is what we do every year, usually do it a couple times towards the year end.
And that one that I sent down that Vicki brought in just at the start of the meeting is the current one.
Right, okay.
So this is broken out into two sections. Codes A through H, I met with the Finance Committee last week, and they approved all of those transfers. And the sections down below, I through N, are ones that I've added to this list so that you guys can approve them this week or not approve them, whichever you choose. And then which ones you do approve, I will bring to the Finance Committee the next time, just to keep the ball going. Because if I waited to do them the 24th and the 25th, you're kind of getting behind the 8 ball in that way. There are certain items on this list in the bottom, we wouldn't be able to pay certain bills, like health insurance and that kind of stuff. So, and the chief is here to explain his. I have his email that he sent me, but he is probably more apt at giving you some more explanations than the ones that him and I had discussed. So he'll be able to give you more in depth into that first piece that the Finance Committee has approved those. So PEG programming is going to be short $359.88, which we are going to take from admin assistant wages. The admin assistant wages will have overage of funds because we didn't hire Judy until partway through the year. The balance that was remaining in vocational tuition, part of that has to go back to the elementary school to keep with the net school spending, and part of that is going to go to local transportation. When we did the budget for the local transportation, the unknown cost of the sped cost of kids going out of district was not included in that budget item for FY19, and so we have those extra sped costs in there, and this will cover those extra costs for the sped buses. Gas and electric town hall is probably going to be short about $2,500 based on what we've paid on average, for this particular year, and that part of that will come from admin assistant wages and part will come from Barnes Aquifer, as we know the Barnes Aquifer has disseminated and no longer exists. So we have that $2,000 there. Photocopier lease and supplies. Originally, it was about $200 to cover the last month of the 12th month payment, which would come from admin assistant wages, but you'll see down below in discussing with Ed that he had to buy some more paper. So that will be, you'll also see that line item down below. Machinery and maintenance was $13,962.44, which will come from general highway to pay for the sweeper. Amongst other things, yes. It's all repairs to the equipment from the highway department. And we want to be able to keep those costs in the right bucket so that when you go to budget next year, you kind of know what you're looking at. And so this building expense is for the fire department, and $23,000. Ambulance EMS expense, $7,000. Ambulance EMS expense, $5,500. Did I do that right? Did I write the right number down? Yeah.
So we had to do roof repairs to the fire station, is that what this is?
Well, I'll go through those and then the chief can kind of come up and explain it all to you a little better than me. Fire expense, we need $7,000. Fire truck maintenance is just moving from ambulance maintenance to fire truck maintenance to repair. But this is all going to come from his EMT wages and his standby wages, and it's all money that is just moving between line items in his budget.
Yep.
But he can explain a good majority of that better than I can. Thank you for coming.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, they are.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? So, yeah, some of the challenges,
Introduce yourself.
oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
John Workman, Fire Chief, Belanger Road. Some of the challenges that I have are, our building was built last century, built in 1866, and we've been putting off repairs because there's never money for repairs. We did do a boiler, which had put a deficit on my books, which you probably had seen the overexpenditure there. We were wondering if that was going to come out of capital. The budget has actually been going pretty well. Some of the concerns that I have in the overall budget are if we have a major conflagration, if we have major fires are our most expensive go, just because they have a lot of personnel costs that can last for a bit of time. And so I hate to make some of these transfers until I know that we're pretty much in the clear. And so that's why I'm making these transfers now. The building, it's got some roof shingles that have blown off. The cap is rotted, so we're looking to fix the roof up, keep the water out. It's got borer bees, which are getting into some of the fascia dramatically, especially in the front, to the point where that is going to accelerate deterioration. We're looking to probably just put some like the vinyl siding trim over that, so it's not replacing all that wood, but it's saving what's there and protecting it. There's a big hole in the back where the squirrels have been running overhead. So there's some fascia boards that need to be replaced in the back. There's OSHA. OSHA has a whole bunch of things that are required for municipal buildings. I'm sidestepping some OSHA requirements because I'm hopeful that a new municipal complex will at some point be something that the town is considering, only because some of the money to do like exhaust extraction would be like a $50,000 repair, and it seems a little crazy to me to put $50,000 into a building that's not going to stay a fire station for very long. So I'm hoping by not addressing that head on right now that there'll be some answers forthcoming. Some of the other concerns, they require a second egress. They don't consider the apparatus doors as an egress. And so there's only one way out of that building if you look at it in that way. So we're looking to add a door that'll actually go out behind our engine 3, the furthest away from us, apparatus bay. And that'll also facilitate getting into the crew quarters. So, and then there's some money being spent underneath to enclose that area, just because we had a few freeze-up problems this winter with some of the pipes there, even though there's some heat tape. And so I'm trying to put enough Band-Aids on this so that the building doesn't fall apart and it's still useful for if and when we get a new station. It'll still be standing and repelling water, and hopefully we can repurpose it for another good use. The EMS expense, I mean, we're doing more EMS business, and so we're spending more money on supplies. So there's some money that I need to get into medical supplies. We've been doing a lot with police department just in regards to some of the active shooter stuff. We're actually doing more and more partnership. Police department does a great job. I think the partnership is good for the town, it's good for the community, it's good for all the members of both departments. Stop the Bleed is a program that actually uses some tourniquets. We're trying to purchase some tourniquet stuff that would go with the schools, that they would have in their GO buckets that they currently have in the school. It's a great program. It's necessary, unfortunately, with the kind of problems that we're having in society today. And you can't say anymore that it won't happen here. I think that everybody is exposed to that kind of thing. So we're being proactive in that direction with the school department and police department. We're also partnering with police department on as you go down to the EMT standby account, the transfer of money. We're looking to transfer money for some new AEDs, automatic defibrillators. If somebody has a cardiac issue, you can change their rhythm ideally and get them back in a normal sinus rhythm. we're looking to actually purchase, part of the problem is a few years back, we'd gotten some used units and we'd saved money, it was all the money we had. So we'd bought some used units, but unfortunately some of the used units now need parts replacement, and because they were used and near the end of their life cycle when we purchased them, they no longer make that model. And to get more used ones is not a great answer. They're probably about a $800 difference additional cost to get a new unit that's compatible with everything that the ambulance has on it. And that way, when we come in, if police have arrived on scene prior to us, which does happen, and have used an AED to try and shock someone back into rhythm, we can transfer, their pads will plug directly into our equipment. And so we're looking to buy 2 AEDs. Some money will come from police department, some money will come from us. I'm looking to replace one unit that is defunct from theirs, and the other unit is just older. It's one of the refurbished ones that we've gotten before. I want to give them 2 of the good ones, the 2 good ones that we buy, the 2 new ones that we buy, take the old refurbished one that's still functioning. We'll probably put it on an engine, just because one of the challenges that firefighters have is going down at a scene for heat exhaustion. It's an extra safeguard just for our firefighters, just to make sure that there's something available. And it makes a whole lot more sense to have police as first responders with new units that are compatible everywhere. Fire expense, I have 2 nozzles that I need to replace. They're about $1,000 each. And the last is there's a server that was used back in 2013. It's at the end of its life cycle. I don't want to have a server crash on me. I think this is an opportune moment to get it in. I think overall, all the money that I'm expending is transferring from other line items that are already within my budget. I'm not cutting it so close there'll be extra money left over in my overall budget at the end of the year still, but I feel that these issues are particularly pending and need to be addressed. The last is just the transfer from an ambulance maintenance account to a fire truck maintenance account. Any questions on any part of that?
Any questions?
No, I think it's all well purposed.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So that's the last of the transfers that the Finance Committee had approved a week ago Monday. And so the next section will be ones that are first coming to you, and then if they are approved, will go to the
Finance?
The Finance Committee, correct.
Why are they going in reverse?
Just because I'm here already to do them, and, in some years we've done it that way, some years we've gone to them. For some years, we've had joint meetings where they're sitting here and you kind of both discuss it at the same time. But this way, it just saves some time in terms of paying some of these bills, right away, instead of waiting till Tuesday. And
So before we do that, since we may have a little caveat on the second half, why don't we take a motion to accept the transfers on the first half? Is there a motion?
I move to accept the transfers, A through H.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous, thanks. Go ahead, Vicki.
Okay. So that way these, there's bills that are pending currently in the process that we'll now put into the system to pay since these are approved, so. So the next set are ones that, that when I looked at the, some of them are when I looked at the expense report, realizing that some of these items potentially, will be short, that we would need to cover till the end of the year. The first one is the health director's salary. Ed and I had discussed this, and this is the amount of money it will take to pay the health director that higher rate that was discussed with, I believe, town council and the pay equity law that went into effect a few years ago. This will take that from February, when we had the town meeting, till June 30th. Which will come from admin assistant wages and then health agent wages. Because of the rain and stuff that we've had, the health agent hadn't gone out, people were not getting septic systems, you know, Title V's and all that, and you can only do so many per day, you know, between now and the end of the year, so that piece is there. The only caveat to that is, until the Board of Health approves that rate change, I can't pay that rate. So it's on here for you guys to discuss.
So it would be pending our approval, Finance Committee, and then the Board of Health also?
Correct.
Okay.
Understanding the rate change, there's enough in the budget to continue paying through the end of the fiscal year.
The end of the fiscal year,
Only 93% has been spent, so there should be enough for the month.
the end of the,
Without the rate change.
there is not enough to get through the end of the year without the rate change. What?
The rate change.
That, if we stayed on the original rate, she should have enough to get through the rest of the year.
We stayed on what?
There's enough to get through the year at the original rate. There's not enough to get through the year at the new rate. Is that correct?
No, there's not enough to get through with the current rate and with the new rate.
Why? Why not at the current rate? Or why not at the original rate?
Why not at the original rate?
Why not at the original rate?
Because it was never fully funded for the 32 hours at whatever rate she had, so.
So we're looking at the expense report through June 6th, and it says they're at 93%, which is pretty much on target. So I guess the question is, the money left sitting in the balance, that doesn't cover it through the end of June?
Between now and the end of June, correct?
That will cover it?
No,
Less
it
than
will
that.
not.
How short
No,
is
it's
it?
right on
I mean,
track.
$1,125.
Short?
At the old rate?
Correct.
Okay. So 1,125, and the balance, which is roughly 4,200, is to fund it at the new rate?
No, this whole $5,389 is for the new rate completely,
For what time frame on it?
from February till June.
Okay, so there'd be a retro, or is she getting paid that now?
No, she's not getting paid the new rate now.
So there would be a retro back to the town
Correct.
meeting? Okay,
If all those approvals
right.
move forward,
Okay.
correct.
Just want to understand it, yeah?
Yeah, but we would still be short, that line would still be short $1,125
If there was no retro.
if there is no rate change whatsoever,
Okay. Does that answer all the questions?
which would come from the health agent line item.
Not entirely, because I don't get that, because maybe I'm missing something, I'm hoping, but if this happened in that category, why wouldn't it have happened in all of other categories? I mean, we level funded off of last year, right? Isn't that what we did?
Yep.
So if we level funded off of last year, then that would suggest that the previous year we were off as well. Well, unless
Or there's
another
some-
variable changed that I'm not aware of. So what variables have changed that I'm
Yeah, because there was
aware of? I don't get why we would be off this year.
Because the level funding was not fully funded for 52.2 weeks,
but we
So
did
then
a,
it
even though you level funded, so.
But then that means it wasn't funded properly the previous year either, and we must have been off in the previous year too.
but we did a budget
I'd have to look
revision
and
of
see.
$5,000.
Huh?
We did a budget revision of $5,000 here. So we upped it from 32.8 to roughly 37.8 to comply with that.
And that 37 is at the old rate.
I believe so, yes.
Correct.
Because this didn't go through till February at the town meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
So I think by the town meeting voting to increase the salary based on the equity adjustment, we owe that rate from the town meeting on. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct,
From February,
which this would take care of.
Right. If town meeting voted on it, I think we need to.
So what did the town meeting vote on?
The equity raise in the budget, correct, Ed? For the
Yes,
Board of Health Director?
correct.
That was passed.
Yeah.
So what does that total now look like? With this adjustment?
What do you mean? So if we add $5,389.32?
To the 37,859?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So it's 43,000. 43,000.
Tammy, don't, yeah. If
Yes.
you got a question, maybe come up here.
Tammy Melundis, 298 College Highway. Does that mean the budget for them that we just approved at the last town meeting is going to be underfunded because we went off of level funding?
Underfunded this year?
No, yes, because
For
this was
20.
for 20.
Yes.
Yeah.
For next year, it's
So
still
we
going to
level
be,
funded that, and they need to deal with that.
okay. But are we going to be scrambling and,
It would be up to the department to
for
decide how
hours
they
and
want to
everything
staff
else.
and hours and all that stuff.
There's a whole formula there, but,
thank you.
yep.
Any more questions on that? Okay.
So the next line item is money we had put aside, extended illness benefit, a separate line item for anyone who went on our disability insurance. This was for the van driver for the COA, originally anticipating to be out 8 weeks, but was out 12 weeks with his surgery. And so this is the deficit that we paid him for those last few weeks, which is going to come from the COA expenses. Because they have about $1,389 left currently in their expense budget and don't anticipate spending that all by the end of the year. Group health retiree will be short $7,852.10 per Robin's report. Off the, what she just paid, what she just gave Joyce to pay, yes, yeah. And so that is going to come from the assessor admin assistant. I spoke with the assessor's office and they hired someone and she was here for a few weeks, so they have that money and they're not gonna obviously use that by the end of the year. Group health insurance is estimated at gonna be short about $6,800, which will come from town clerk assistant wages and the reserve fund. I talked to the town clerk, and because of not using 5 weeks paid when she was on vacation, and we didn't hire an assistant town clerk while she was interim, there's money savings left in there that we would be able to use to cover health insurance. The Board of Health expenses will be short about $150. There was a bat issue in someone's home that needs to get sent out to get tested for rabies and whatnot. And so this will cover part of that cost. We just have an estimate of how much that potentially will cost, which will come within their budget from that Sharps program. As last time we discussed, she had negotiated a new rate for some of that Sharps issues. And photocopier lease and supplies, as I said earlier when we talked about, I had transferred 200, Ed and I talked about it, and the bill is going to be a little bit more than anticipated, and we were going to run out of paper by the end of the year, so he had to order some new paper, which is included in that $250, which will come from his admin expenses.
I'm looking at all these sheets here, single-sided, maybe we could have saved some paper. Okay, so any questions on the sections I through N?
So I guess the question is about the group health rates. Did we have, in the retiree category, did we have more retirees?
I'm not sure, I didn't budget that last year, I wasn't here then, I'm not sure how they did it.
So we,
Or was it a rate increase? I mean, or both? And are we in the same, will we be in the same situation this next year?
so in 19's budget, we based it off of what we paid in 18.
Okay.
And you obviously can't anticipate how many people are going to retire. And I think we had a few new people retire this particular year. And if they switch insurances, their rate goes up too. It's hard to really gauge with insurance.
When they come off the regular insurance and go to retiree, it should should actually get lower because it's less money for retiree than to be on a employee plan.
So last year, on average, we paid about $13,000 to $15,000 for retiree insurance. This year, it's $15,000 to $18,000. So it's, I mean, we know we did have a few people, new people retire, like the former police chief. We didn't know he was going to retire, you know, that kind of thing. So it's kind of hard to gauge. You can only go by what you spent last year. You might add one or two people, or if Jen knows the rates are going to change, then we wouldn't put that in there.
Yeah, so we didn't do a rate increase for this coming fiscal year 20 because there was no rate increase. I mean, I'm hoping what we did for fiscal year 20 will.
And if people add family plans for regular insurance, or they switch from a PPO to an HMO or an HMO to PPO back and forth, you can only kind of guesstimate. This is what we paid last year. We'll assume all those people stay the same. And I think this year you added a couple new people at the highest rate you possibly could.
I did, so I added a couple of new people for each plan. I took like one of the larger month payments, multiplied it by 12. I added new people for each plan in case, you know, new employees or you never know. And, you know, so hopefully it will be good. I mean, I think we are going to have an extra cost to that, so.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole thing.
And last year, in 1918, we transferred $57,000 because the rates went up and we didn't know that at that point in time, so. But luckily enough, there are those two particular positions that weren't filled, and there was extra money, unused money to cover this. Because otherwise we would have been kind of stuck.
Okay, so I'm going to need a motion on I through N.
Yeah, I move we accept the changes, the transfers as proposed.
Okay, okay, a second?
Second it.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Did you say not aye?
I did say aye.
Aye, okay, so unanimous? Thank you, Vicki.
You're welcome.
'18 Annual Town Report Appreciation / Dedication Page nominees.
Would the board have anyone that they want to nominate or consider for that appreciation dedication page in the annual town report?
When do we need to know that by? Because I haven't thought about it, but,
I've thought about it.
okay.
Isn't it going to be a surprise?
Apparently not. Unless, if you want it to be a surprise, but,
I mean, my recommendation would be Art Lawrence.
Art Lawrence,
For all the work
the
he's
annual
done
town
as a
report.
volunteer to maintain the IT system here in the building.
Yeah, runs that whole building department.
That sounds like a good idea to me. Does anybody have any other thoughts? Luckily, this isn't going out live, so he's not seeing us. Yeah, probably. Okay, so all in favor of nominating Art Lawrence for the annual town report?
Aye.
Aye.
Was there a second there?
I was looking for
Oh,
a
sorry.
motion and a second. Right?
Oh, sorry.
I move.
It's already approved.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I get ruly sometimes, unruly. Okay, open space review ad hoc committee discussion. We're gonna hold that until Renee's here, since she's on it with me also. Town administrator evaluation, Midley, I haven't done anything. I don't know if the rest of you have, but I think the next step, what we need to do, Ed gave us a self-evaluation, is we need to put a list of criteria and questions together. And my suggestion is gonna be, I'll email them into me, I'll do a summary, and I'll bring them back so we can take a look at it. Can you do that? Okay. Any other necessary business that can't await the June 25th regular select board meeting? Thank you. Signatures, PCFs. Ed, do all of these have all the appropriate signatures?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so we're not missing any. So I don't need to see the originals. Excuse me. So I'm going to read these off. PCF, Isaac Gomez, Police Department, Auxiliary Police Officer, new hire. PCF, Chris De Facto, Treasurer, Collector Office, Administrative Clerk, salary increase. Salary increase, okay, that always intrigues me. So what is that based on, Ed?
Is it within the budget?
This is part of the agreement change from the water department to the collector treasurer, or the treasurer collector's office for processing their bills and invoices and sending them out.
So it's just the money coming over, and
Correct.
she's getting that directly from the payroll.
Correct.
Okay, I remember that one. Thank you. Robin Richard,
I guess
Treasurer.
the question is, it's the same work or different work? Or more work?
I'll let Jen explain it, but my understanding was when they first took this over that there was no adjustment made to the pay for the additional work that they would
Correct.
be doing for this. And now they have come to an agreement with the water department to,
And the water department's funding it.
and the water department is funding this. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's,
Does it affect any other department? I mean, I know that the work is done primarily by your department, but does it involve accounting, for instance, no other department?
no, not that, I don't think, I mean, do you?
I mean, if we do work for the water, we process bills, we do reconciliations, but I don't have,
But it's nothing in addition that's being moved over the way it's
no,
being moved?
no. We're all still doing work, but we all, when, water came up, we all were doing more work, but I've adjusted the percentage in the indirect cost piece
Okay,
for that piece, and I'm okay for that, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so I think what happened originally was that when the water came into the
Wanna go
treasurer
back to the
collector
mic,
office.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry. When the water came into the treasurer collector office back in 2014.
For FY15.
The work increased, but the wages never increased for either of the assistants in that office. So that's kind of what I'm working on now, in a way to get, their pay up to where it should be, which it still quite isn't, but, it's a step in the right direction.
It's gone through the whole process, has the signatures, right, Ed?
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Good. Angela Bolduc, Town Clerk Office, Assistant Town Clerk, change in position from temporary to permanent. PCF Judith Poulin, Library, Substitute Librarian, hourly increase. And the same thing with Carol Golette, Substitute Librarian, hourly increase. And Cynthia Lucier, Library Substitute Librarian, hourly increase. And Barbara Thompson, Library Substitute Librarian, hourly increase. If it's signed off by the PQB, follow the process, it's all set?
Yes.
Okay.
And did you skip over the one for Robin Richard?
I thought I said that.
I didn't hear it, but
That's okay. Did I jump it? Oh, okay. Okay. So, have a motion to approve all of them as written?
So move.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No,
All
just a note for the record that the librarian, substitute librarians are $1 increase per hour, that's all, for those that can't see this.
Okay.
It's from.
The library's going to minimum wage, and even within Jen's budget and the library's budget, those all fit to what they have left for their budget for this fiscal year.
There's no budget increase here.
No, no.
Yeah. As you said, Barbara is very cognizant of all that. Okay, licenses, permits, Brenda LaMagdalene? Sure, let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ah, thanks. Oh,
You're a procedure man.
that's good. Okay, licenses, permits, Brenda LaMagdalene, one-day beer and wine, Conant Park, June 30th, 2019, noon to 8, graduation party. Do we have all the forms and the check and all that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
To approve the alcohol license.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, would you like to read this one warrant?
Yes. Warrant 19-49 for $467,267.71.
This is the night I wish there was 20 of them that you could read for me. Little break.
All of them, all of you.
So other documents requiring signatures, we did 3, but the signing of the DEP funding extension increase for water system improvement project. Ed, you,
If you remember, probably a few weeks back, you approved to have the chair sign for requesting the extension of the project.
right,
This is actually for the extension of for the additional funding for the same reasons that the timeline was needed to be extended of what they found along the way, or I should say the architect consultant found along the way. So we also have to request what we had applied to for the DEP for the cost estimate of the construction of those 2 projects. And in this case, the town has appropriated $1,700,000 to finance the construction of the project. This request would be for $1,688,000, so it's still within our approved appropriation.
okay. Any questions on that before we take a motion to sign it? Okay, I have a motion.
I move to sign the funding extension for the water system.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So unanimous. Minutes to approve, May 6th, 2019, and May 7th. Should be in your packet if you haven't seen them.
On the May 6th, the only thing I saw was under, on the 3rd page of the minutes, under the police chief appointment, we had a motion was moved by Ms. Groden and seconded by, and there's nobody's name there.
Where is this?
On the 3rd page of the minutes, under the bullet, police chief appointment and contract,
Yep.
the paragraphs reads, a motion was moved by Ms. Groden and seconded by,
And there's no name. Yep.
no name.
Yeah, it says Mr. Rowland in mine.
It does.
Under Chief Illingsworth?
Are you under Chief Illingsworth? That police chief appointment and contract?
Seconded by Mr. Rowland.
Yeah,
You see that too?
I do. I see if that's what you're talking about.
Is that what we're talking? Under Chief Illingsworth.
Is this right here? Oh, no, she's talking about up above.
Yeah, I'm talking about up above.
Up above where?
First one.
Same paragraph, but first line. Seconded by.
You can put me.
We can go back and look at the tape and see who it
Yeah.
was.
So if you want to make a motion that we approve it with that one change, we can do that to save time coming back here. Did anybody else see anything else? So, Francine, would you like to make a motion with that change?
I move to approve the minutes with that one amendment, the minutes of the May 6th meeting with the one amendment.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous? Okay, so May 7th?
John, sorry, I'm assuming I should not vote on that, since I wasn't.
No, you don't have to be here to vote.
Oh.
That's
I
okay.
can vote on it?
You can.
All right, I'll say aye then.
You know, yeah, okay. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't see the 7th in here. Did I miss it?
7th is not in here.
I had sent it out separately,
Oh, yeah.
And-
All right, yeah, I do.
and it's in the Dropbox.
Oh, okay.
As I thought I put it in the
That's right,
Dropbox.
I did see that separately. Seventh.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve May 7th.
Is
I'll
there-
second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are you in, Chris, or out?
No, I guess I'm just confused. since
You
I'm
can,
not a
you can
member of the board.
abstain too.
You can abstain if you
have two
want,
choices.
but you don't have to be here to vote on improvement.
Member of the board, I wasn't even-
Yeah, so
But-
then,
But you are now.
Okay,
Yeah, but if you want to abstain, that's fine.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so 3-0 and 1. Pending items. Is there anything on there that people want to discuss tonight rather than next meeting? Only because I'm trying to push this along a little bit. We already talked about the Greenway. The
I mean,
College
well,
Highway land donation.
I think the one, I do want to say one thing about the Greenway. I'm not maybe as educated as some on this, and I know that it's been going on for nearly a decade, I think. So at some point, I'd like to come up to speed before I don't want to prejudge this in my own head, and I'm fighting the urge to do so. So I need to get all the facts somehow.
Okay,
So if we're going to start making some decisions on RFPs or RFQs or whatever that is, I think we perhaps need to bring somebody in or have a full-fledged discussion about where we are on all the facts on this.
well,
Does anybody else agree?
but that's why we brought Paul in.
Sure, but tonight was only a partial, I mean, I
Yeah.
learned something from him for sure tonight, but I was also flabbergasted by some things as well that I had not understood before.
Okay. So why don't we just talk offline and get you what you
Sure.
need?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. The College Highway land donation, Public Safety Committee is Thursday. There's going to be an update there, so I can report back if anybody wants to go. They can also go to that meeting.
Thursday at 4 o'clock?
Thursday, 4 o'clock here. Okay, open time for the public. Seeing none,
So,
oh, there she is. I'm sorry, I didn't see it come up.
Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway. I have three things, sorry. First is Hampshire Regional, as a Hampshire Regional School Committee member, yes, I did take on organizing the senior breakfast, and I want to say a huge thank you to several of the Southampton businesses that gave donations. We have Puzas, Paisanos, Cumbies, and Bashistas. And then we get a big donation from Big E's in Easthampton. So please, if you have a senior that graduated or kids coming up, they really help put this whole breakfast together.
Did you send them something from the Hampshire Regional?
Yeah, I write thank you letters.
Great.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to mention is Celebrate Southampton. September 14th. There's going to be a lot of events happening that day, but one of them, again, that I'm running, is that there's going to be a bake contest going on. So I want to make sure everybody knows, you know, moms, dads, kids, nanas, get their recipes ready and come participate.
I guess our question is, what, you need judges?
Well, actually, I've lined up several chefs that have restaurants that live in town. I have a couple of historical people coming in that have the theme is agriculture. So I have a couple of people coming in that have history with farming in town coming in to do the judging. I have a Board of Selectmen member that's going to help do some of the judging. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's Conan Park.
Corner Park, okay. Great.
Yep. The story hour starts at the Civic Center, the Senior Center here, and then it makes its way down to Conan Park. So that's the last. And then the last thing is I am getting asked all kinds of questions about when did the town vote on the plastic bag ban? I heard about the
That's the Board of Health, correct, huh?
Yeah, Board of Health.
Board of Health? Yeah.
So is more information going to come out, or is that just going to get
I would
thrown
say-
on us?
We did discuss this in a meeting. Okay. We did discuss this, I brought this here to this board too, and announced that here as well. However, and my memory might be fading me on this, but part of the plastic bag ban, Tammy, is also like Big Y is doing it automatically. It has nothing
Yes.
to do with the Board of Health, which
Yeah.
is obviously the probably largest producer of this in this town, I would say. So that pretty much takes care of 90% of it, really.
Well, I
mean,
just
is there a
wasn't.
concern with not
We
having
knew
plastic
about the
bags?
cups and stuff, and there was a lot of talk about getting rid of the foam cups and styrofoam containers and stuff. But then the bags came about, and it was just, people have been asking, when was that even talked about? And,
Board of Health has been all over that.
okay.
So the effective date is June 1st, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't have the
Of this
date.
year,
Yeah, because apparently it came
June,
out,
June 1st?
June 1st.
So
That's
it's
what I
passed.
something came out on the Southampton
That's what I
community site today. Somebody said that they got a notice in the mail.
Yeah,
I know I did not
I did,
myself,
yeah.
saying that it took effect as of June 1st, and so that's where the question arose, because,
That there was no kind of lead up to it,
Yeah.
like it.
Well, there's not, how can you lead up to something like that? I mean,
well, just
I guess maybe
information.
better announce it. You can
Well, if
announce it
somebody
better,
got a
but it's like you're
letter,
either-
you would think the whole town would have gotten a letter or
Yeah.
something have gone out, other than just one person.
I gathered from the Board of Health, I think.
No, these things definitely originated from the Board of Health, for sure.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks. No one else? Okay, we're going to go into executive session, and we will not be returning. And we're going into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3. First session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargain or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This is for the Highway Local 98. Section 2, under the same Mass General Law, for the police officers, New England Benevolent Police Association. Third session is same general law, dispatchers, New England Benevolent Police Association. And then the fourth session is Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant in aid requirements. Approval of executive session minutes, May 6, 2019, and May 7, 2019. Have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Roland, aye.
Martin, aye.
Fishman, aye.
Fowles, aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Going to executive session after a quick 5-minute recess.